Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into something absolutely insane. What if Naruto was the reincarnation of Mihawk, the world's strongest swordsman from One Piece? Now, let's think about this logically for a second. Mihawk from One Piece is absolutely broken, right? Like, this man is literally called the strongest swordsman in the world. He's got Yoru, that massive black blade that can cut through anything, and he's so powerful that even Shanks, one of the four emperors, used to have legendary duels with him. The guy can split icebergs with casual sword swings and has that insane conqueror's haki that can knock out entire armies. He's basically untouchable in terms of pure skill and power. So we thought, what if we took all that broken power and gave it to Naruto? But here's the twist. Not the Naruto we know and love. Instead, imagine a Naruto who never got the Nine Tails, who got completely forgotten and neglected by his own family, and had to find his own path to power. Combining Mihawk's cold, calculating nature with Naruto's potential for growth? That's a recipe for something absolutely epic. Trust me, this story is going to blow your mind completely. So, here's the synopsis. Imagine Naruto never got the Nine Tails. Instead, it went to his twin brother Menma, making him the golden child, while Naruto gets completely forgotten and neglected by his own family. On his 7th birthday, nobody even remembers. Not his parents, not his brother, nobody. That's when something cold awakens inside him, and he leaves Konoha forever. But here's the twist. He's actually Mihawk's reincarnation, with all those legendary sword skills just waiting to be unlocked. He ends up in the Mist Village, becomes their deadliest weapon, and eventually faces off against his own brother, who's become a perfect Jinchuriki. We're talking dimensional powers, reality-cutting sword techniques, and family drama that'll make your head spin. Now, before we dive into this epic journey, I need you guys to smash that like button. Our target today is 68 likes, so let's crush it. Hit subscribe if you haven't already, because we've got more incredible what-if stories coming your way. Ring that notification bell so you never miss when we drop these bangers.
Naruto sat cross-legged on his small bed, staring at the calendar on his wall. October 10th, 7 years old today, he had been waiting all morning for someone to remember. The apartment was quiet, too quiet. No sounds of cake being made in the kitchen, no rustling of wrapping paper, no excited voices calling his name. He walked to the window and looked down at the village below. People moved through the streets like they did every other day, nothing special, nothing different. Maybe they're planning a surprise, he whispered to himself, but his voice sounded hollow even to his own ears. Naruto heard footsteps in the hallway outside his door. His heart jumped. Finally, he ran to the door and pressed his ear against it. Menma's chakra control is improving faster than we expected. His father's voice drifted through the wood. Minato sounded proud. The Nine Tails is responding well to his commands. That's wonderful, Kushina replied. He really is special. The village will be safe with him as our protector. Naruto's hands pressed flat against the door. They were right outside, right there. He could open the door and remind them what day it was. We need to focus all our attention on his training, Minato continued. The council is pushing for accelerated programs. They want to see results. Of course, Menma is our priority. He's the one who will protect everyone. Their footsteps moved away down the hall. Naruto stood frozen by the door, his small hands still pressed against the cold wood. Priority, Menma was their priority. He walked back to his bed and sat down. The calendar stared back at him. October 10th, his birthday, the day he was born, the day that should matter to someone. Hours passed, the sun moved across the sky. Naruto's stomach growled, but he didn't move to find food. He just sat there, waiting for someone to remember. Evening came, the apartment door opened downstairs. Voices filled the house, happy, excited voices. Menma, that was incredible, the way you suppressed the Nine Tails chakra completely. Thanks, Dad, it wasn't that hard once I figured out the trick. We're so proud of you, sweetheart. That was his mother's voice, warm and loving in a way Naruto rarely heard directed at him. Should we celebrate? Minato asked. I think this calls for cake. Naruto's heart stopped. Cake. They were going to have cake. Maybe they did remember. Maybe they were just waiting until Menma got home from training. He heard movement in the kitchen, the sound of cabinet doors opening, his mother humming happily, the clink of plates being set on the table. Naruto crept to the top of the stairs and looked down. Through the kitchen doorway, he could see them. His parents and Menma sitting around the table. A chocolate cake sat in the center, candles flickering on top. "Make a wish, Menma," Kushina said softly. Menma closed his eyes and blew out the candles. Everyone clapped. Minato cut the cake and handed out pieces. They were all smiling, all happy. None of them looked up at the stairs. None of them wondered where Naruto was. None of them remembered that today was his birthday too. Naruto watched them celebrate his brother's successful training session, watched them give Menma presents, watched them tell him how proud they were, how special he was, how much they loved him. He turned away from the stairs and walked back to his room. He closed the door quietly and sat on his bed. Something cold settled in his chest, something that felt like ice spreading through his veins. The hurt was still there, but underneath it was something else, something harder. He looked at himself in the small mirror on his dresser. His blue eyes looked different somehow, colder, more focused. The childish hope that had lived there for 7 years was gone. "I don't need them," he said quietly to his reflection. "I don't need anyone." The words felt true in a way that scared him, but they also felt like strength. Downstairs, the celebration continued. His family laughed and talked and enjoyed their cake. None of them came to check on him. None of them wondered why he wasn't there. Naruto lay down on his bed and stared at the ceiling. Tomorrow, he would start planning. Tomorrow, he would figure out how to become strong without them. How to become someone who didn't need their love or attention or recognition. But tonight, on his 7th birthday, he let himself feel the hurt one last time. Let himself be the child who wanted his parents to remember, who wanted to matter to someone. Tomorrow, that child would be gone forever. The apartment grew quiet. The celebration ended. His family went to bed, satisfied and happy with their perfect son and his achievements. Naruto closed his eyes and felt something fundamental change inside him. The warm, hopeful part of his heart went cold and still. In its place, something else grew, something calculating and distant and utterly self-reliant. He didn't cry, he didn't scream or throw things or run to his parents' room demanding attention. He just lay there in the darkness and let the old Naruto die. When he opened his eyes again, they held a different kind of light. Sharper, more dangerous. The eyes of someone who had learned the most important lesson of all: the only person you can truly rely on is yourself. Outside his window, the village slept peacefully, unaware that something had changed. That the boy they had ignored and forgotten had just taken his first step toward becoming something far beyond their understanding. Something that would one day make them all pay attention. 3 days after his birthday, Naruto made his decision. He packed light, a few clothes, some dried food he had saved, and what little money he had hidden away. Everything fit in a small backpack. He left no note, there was nothing to say. The village guards were used to seeing him wander around at odd hours. Nobody questioned a 7-year-old walking toward the gates in the early morning mist. Nobody cared enough to ask where he was going. Naruto walked through the gates of Konoha and didn't look back. The first week was hard. He slept in trees and ate berries when his food ran out, but something inside him had changed. Where other children would have panicked or cried for their parents, Naruto felt calm, focused, like he knew exactly what he needed to do. He headed east toward the land of water. He wasn't sure why, something just pulled him in that direction. On the 8th day, he found a broken sword lying beside an old battlefield. The blade was chipped and the handle was cracked, but when Naruto picked it up, it felt right in his hands, like it belonged there. He swung it experimentally. The movement felt natural, like he had done it 1,000 times before. He didn't understand why he knew how to hold it properly, or why his stance automatically shifted into something that looked almost professional. But he didn't question it. Strange things happened to him all the time. This was just one more. 2 weeks into his journey, Naruto reached the border of the land of water. The air was thick with mist, and the sound of clashing steel echoed through the trees ahead. He crept forward and saw two ninja fighting. One was tall with wild hair and bandages covering half his face. The other was smaller, wearing a mask. They moved faster than anything Naruto had ever seen. The masked one went down hard. The tall ninja raised his massive sword for a killing blow. "Wait," Naruto called out, stepping into the clearing. Both ninja froze. The tall one, Zabuza, though Naruto didn't know his name yet, stared at the small boy holding a broken sword. "Kid, you picked a bad time to get lost," Zabuza growled. "I'm not lost," Naruto said calmly, "and you don't want to kill him." Zabuza laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "And why's that?" "Because he's useful to you. You can see it in how you fight together. Killing useful tools is wasteful." The masked ninja Haku looked up from the ground, surprised by the cold logic in such a young voice. Zabuza studied Naruto more carefully. "You're not from around here, kid. That headband says Konoha, but you're a long way from home." "I don't have a home," Naruto replied. "I'm looking for a new one." The land of water isn't exactly welcoming to foreign ninja, especially not Konoha brats. Naruto shrugged. "Then I'll make them welcome me." Something in his tone made Zabuza pause. This wasn't the usual childish bravado. This was something else, something that reminded him of himself at that age. "What's your name, kid?" "Naruto Uzumaki." Zabuza's eyes widened slightly. He had heard that name before. The Hokage's son, the one who wasn't chosen to be the Jinchuriki. "Long way from Daddy's village," Zabuza said carefully. "He's not my father anymore," Naruto said in the same flat tone. "None of them are my family anymore." Haku struggled to his feet, watching this strange conversation unfold. The boy couldn't be more than 7, but he spoke like an adult, like someone who had already seen too much. "The Mist Village doesn't exactly welcome defectors with open arms," Zabuza warned. "They'll probably try to kill you first and ask questions later." "Let them try," Naruto said simply. Zabuza grinned. He liked this kid's attitude. "All right, kid, I'll make you a deal. You keep up and I'll take you to see the Mizukage, but I'm not slowing down for you and I'm not carrying you when you collapse." "I won't collapse," Naruto said. And he didn't. For 3 days, he kept pace with two of the most dangerous ninja in the land of water. His broken sword never left his hand, and his blue eyes never showed fear or exhaustion. On the 3rd evening, they made camp near a river. Haku was gathering firewood when a group of bandits emerged from the trees. 5 of them, all armed, all looking for easy prey. Well, the leader sneered. "A demon, a pretty boy, and a lost little lamb. This should be fun." Zabuza reached for his sword, but Naruto was already moving. The broken blade flashed in the firelight, 3 swift strikes, too fast to follow. All 5 bandits dropped to the ground, unconscious but alive. Zabuza stared. "Where the hell did you learn to move like that?" Naruto looked down at the sword in his hands, surprised by his own actions. I don't know, it just felt right." That night, as they sat around the fire, Haku spoke for the first time since they'd met. "Why did you leave?" he asked quietly. Naruto stared into the flames. "Because they forgot I existed. Because my brother was everything they wanted and I was nothing they needed." "So you'll become something they can't ignore," Zabuza said. It wasn't a question. "Maybe, or maybe I'll become something better than what they threw away." The next morning, they reached Kirigakure. The village was shrouded in permanent mist, and the air felt heavy with old blood and older secrets. Ninja moved through the streets like ghosts, their faces hidden and their hands never far from their weapons. "Welcome to the Blood Mist Village," Zabuza said with dark humor. "Last chance to run back to mommy and daddy, kid." Naruto looked around at the hostile faces, the suspicious glares, the general atmosphere of controlled violence. "It's perfect," he said. They were taken to see the 4th Mizukage immediately. Yagura was small and young-looking, but his eyes held the weight of terrible decisions. He studied Naruto with interest that felt dangerous. A Konoha ninja wants to join our village, Yagura said slowly. The son of the fourth Hokage, no less. Why should I trust you? Why shouldn't I just kill you and send your head back to daddy as a message? Because I'm not a Konoha ninja anymore, Naruto replied calmly. I'm a weapon without a master, and weapons are only valuable if someone knows how to use them. And you think I know how to use you? I think you're smart enough to recognize potential when you see it, and I think you're practical enough not to waste useful tools. Yagura smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Show me this potential. A wooden training dummy was brought into the room. Old, solid wood reinforced with metal bands, the kind that could withstand Jonin-level attacks. Naruto raised his broken sword. For a moment, he felt something flow through him, something cold and sharp and absolutely certain. His stance shifted slightly, his grip adjusted, and then he moved. One cut, clean and perfect. The dummy split in half and fell to the floor in two neat pieces. The room was silent. Impressive, Yagura said finally, but can you kill? If necessary, Naruto answered without hesitation. Good, then I'll make you an offer. You can join our ranks as a rogue ninja with full autonomy. You answer to me, but you choose your own missions. You serve the Mist Village's interests, but you serve them your own way. And in return, protection, training, and the chance to become everything your old village thought you couldn't be. Naruto looked around the room one more time, at Zabuza's approving nod, at Haku's curious expression, at the Mizukage's calculating smile. I accept, he said. That night, in a small apartment overlooking the harbor, Naruto sat on his new bed and looked out at the mist-covered water. Somewhere across the ocean was the land of fire. Somewhere in that land was a village where his family lived and laughed and celebrated his brother's achievements. They had probably noticed he was gone by now. Maybe they were even looking for him. But it didn't matter anymore. He was exactly where he needed to be. Naruto lay down and closed his eyes. Tomorrow, his real training would begin. Tomorrow, he would start becoming the weapon he was always meant to be. And someday, when he was strong enough, he would show them all what they had thrown away. 2 years had passed since Naruto arrived in Kirigakure, and the village had begun to take notice of their unusual recruit. At 9 years old, he stood taller than most boys his age, his blonde hair darker now from the constant mist, his blue eyes sharp and calculating. The broken sword he had carried from the forest was long gone, replaced by a proper ninja blade that he wielded with disturbing skill. Again, commanded Jonin Ao, watching as Naruto moved through sword forms with mechanical precision. Your footwork is sloppy. Naruto said nothing, simply reset his stance and began the sequence again. He had learned early that arguing with instructors was pointless. Results spoke louder than words. The blade moved through the air like liquid silver. Each cut was perfect, each step exactly where it needed to be. Other students watched from the sidelines, some with envy, others with fear. How does he do that? Whispered one of the older genin. He's never been taught those techniques. Ao heard the comment and frowned. It was true, Naruto seemed to know sword techniques that weren't taught in any Mist Village curriculum. When asked where he learned them, the boy simply said they felt right. Enough, Ao called out. Sparring time, Naruto, you're with Chijiro. The older boy stepped forward nervously. Chijiro was 12, 3 years older than Naruto, and already being considered for Chunin promotion. But everyone in the class knew how these matches would end. They faced each other in the training circle. Chijiro raised his sword in a traditional stance. Naruto simply stood there, blade at his side, looking bored. Begin, Ao shouted. Chijiro lunged forward with a textbook attack. Fast, clean, properly executed. It should have worked against any 9-year-old. Naruto moved like flowing water. He sidestepped the attack, his blade came up in a simple parry, and then he struck once. The flat of his sword caught Chijiro in the ribs, sending the older boy stumbling backward. Point to Naruto, Ao announced. They reset. Chijiro tried a different approach, a feint followed by a reverse strike. Again, Naruto saw it coming. Again, one simple counter was enough. After the 5th consecutive defeat, Chijiro was breathing hard and sweating. Naruto looked like he had barely moved. "That's enough," Ao said. He studied Naruto with calculating eyes. Interesting techniques, very unconventional. Naruto sheathed his sword. "Is there anything else?" "Actually, yes. Report to the Mizukage's office after training. She wants to see you." The other students exchanged glances. Being summoned by the new Mizukage was either very good news or very bad news. With Naruto, it was hard to tell which. An hour later, Naruto stood in the Mizukage's office. Mei Terumi had taken over after Yagura's abdication, and she brought a different energy to the position. Where Yagura had been cold and calculating, Mei was passionate and decisive, but her brown eyes were just as sharp when it came to evaluating potential. "Naruto," she said, not looking up from the mission report she was reading, "your instructors tell me you're exceptional. I do what needs to be done." "Modest too," she finally looked up, studying his face. "Tell me, how would you handle a B-rank elimination mission?" The question surprised him. B-rank missions were typically reserved for Chunin and above. He was still technically an academy student. "Depends on the target," he replied calmly. "Their skills, their location, their security. Every mission requires different tactics." "And if the target was a rogue ninja from your old village?" Naruto's expression didn't change. "Then they'd be eliminated like any other target. My old village means nothing to me." Mei smiled. She had been testing his loyalty, and he had passed without hesitation. "Good, because I have a special mission for you. There's a missing nin from Konoha operating in our territory. He's been stealing village secrets and selling them to the highest bidder. I want him stopped." She slid a file across her desk. Naruto opened it and looked at the photograph inside. A man in his 30s with Konoha's leaf symbol scratched out on his headband. "His name is Kentaro Yamaki. Former Jonin, specialized in infiltration and information gathering. He's dangerous, but not beyond your capabilities if you're careful." "When do I leave?" "Tonight. This is a solo mission, no backup, no support. You succeed or fail on your own merits." Her voice grew serious. "This is also a test, Naruto. Pass it and I'll consider you for more advanced training. Fail." "I won't fail," he said simply. That evening, Naruto prepared for his first real mission. He packed light basic supplies, his sword, and a few throwing weapons. As he checked his gear one final time, someone knocked on his door. "Come in," he called. Haku entered, carrying a wrapped bundle. Over the past 2 years, he had become something like a mentor to Naruto, though neither of them would have used that word. "A gift," Haku said, offering the bundle, "for your mission." Naruto unwrapped it carefully. Inside was a new sword, longer than his training blade, with a simple but elegant design. The steel gleamed in the lamplight, and when he lifted it, the balance was perfect. "Where did you get this?" Naruto asked. "I made it," Haku replied quietly. "The steel is chakra conductive. It will channel your energy more efficiently than ordinary metal." Naruto swung the blade experimentally. It cut through the air with barely a whisper. He could feel his chakra flowing into the metal, making it stronger, sharper. "Why?" he asked. Haku was quiet for a moment. "Because you remind me of myself at your age, and because everyone deserves at least one person who believes in them." Naruto looked at the sword in his hands. It was a fine weapon, better than anything he had ever owned. "Thank you," he said, and meant it. 3 hours later, Naruto was moving through the forest outside Kirigakure's borders. His target was supposed to be operating from an abandoned shrine about 20 miles to the north. According to intelligence reports, Kentaro had been using it as a base while he gathered information on Mist Village defenses. Naruto reached the shrine just before dawn. It was small and old, surrounded by overgrown trees that provided perfect cover. He could sense chakra inside one person, awake and alert. He circled the building once, looking for the best approach. The front door was too obvious. The windows were too small, but there was a hole in the roof where some tiles had fallen away. Naruto climbed silently, his new sword strapped to his back. He peered through the gap and saw his target sitting at a small table, reading through stolen documents by candlelight. Kentaro was older than his photograph suggested, with gray streaking his hair and scars crossing his hands. He looked tired, like a man who had been running for too long. Naruto dropped through the roof, opening like a falling shadow. Kentaro spun around, kunai already in his hand, but Naruto was already moving. The new sword came out in one smooth motion, chakra flowing into the blade until it hummed with power. "You're just a kid," Kentaro said, surprised. "And you're a dead man," Naruto replied coldly. They fought in the cramped space of the shrine. Kentaro was skilled, his reputation as a Jonin wasn't unearned. He was fast, experienced, and desperate, but Naruto fought like something that had been born with a sword in his hand. Every attack Kentaro made, Naruto had already seen coming. Every counter the older ninja attempted, Naruto was already prepared for. It was like the boy could read his mind. The fight lasted exactly 90 seconds. Kentaro lay on the floor, Naruto's sword at his throat. Blood seeped from half a dozen shallow cuts across his arms and chest. "Please," Kentaro gasped, "I have information about Konoha's defenses, about their Jinchuriki program. I can make it worth your while." "I already know everything I need to know about Konoha," Naruto said quietly. He pressed the sword forward. Kentaro's eyes went wide, then empty. Naruto cleaned his blade on the dead man's clothes, then gathered up the stolen documents. Mission accomplished. Target eliminated. No complications. As he prepared to leave, something caught his eye. Among Kentaro's belongings was a recent intelligence report about Konoha. Naruto scanned it quickly, noting troop movements, defensive positions, and a section about the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki, about Menma's training progress, about how proud the fourth Hokage was of his chosen son. Naruto crumpled the paper and let it fall to the floor. He didn't need reminders of what he had left behind. The sun was rising as he made his way back to Kirigakure. By the time he reached the village gates, merchants were setting up their stalls and children were heading to the academy. Normal people living normal lives. Naruto reported directly to the Mizukage's office. Mei was already at her desk, though it was barely past dawn. "Mission accomplished," he said, placing the recovered documents on her desk. "Target eliminated." Mei looked through the papers quickly, then studied Naruto's face. He showed no signs of stress, no indication that he had just killed a man for the first time. "Any complications?" she asked. "None." "Good." She leaned back in her chair. "I'm promoting you to genin effective immediately. You'll receive advanced training in chakra control and elemental manipulation. Consider this the beginning of your real education." Naruto nodded. "Understood." "One more thing," Mei said as he turned to leave. "The sword techniques you use, where did you learn them?" Naruto paused at the door. It was a question he had been asked many times, and he still didn't have a good answer. "I don't know," he said finally. "They just come to me like I've always known them." Mei watched him leave, a thoughtful expression on her face. In her experience, talents like Naruto's didn't just appear randomly. There was always a source, always an explanation. She made a mental note to look into the boy's background more thoroughly. Something told her there were secrets in his past that even he didn't understand. Meanwhile, Naruto returned to his apartment and placed his new sword carefully on a rack by his bed. The blade gleamed in the morning light, and he could still feel the chakra residue humming through the metal. For the first time since arriving in Kirigakure, he allowed himself a small smile. He was finally becoming what he was meant to be. 3 years had passed since Naruto's first mission, and Kirigakure was changing. The Bloody Mist era was ending, but its death throes were violent and unpredictable. At 12 years old, Naruto had become one of the village's most reliable operatives, a ghost who completed missions without question and returned without fanfare. He sat in the shadows of the Mizukage's office, listening as Mei reviewed the latest intelligence reports with her advisors. The fourth Mizukage's condition is deteriorating, said Ao, his single eye focused on a medical report. The episodes are becoming more frequent, more violent. How many casualties this time? Mei asked quietly. 17, all Chunin or above. He didn't seem to recognize any of them. Naruto watched Mei's jaw tighten. Yagura had been acting strangely for months, periods of normal behavior followed by sudden, inexplicable bursts of violence. Some in the village whispered about a curse. Others suspected enemy interference. We can't continue like this, Mei said. The village is tearing itself apart. What do you suggest? Asked another advisor. He's still the Mizukage. Challenging him directly would be treason. Not if he's being controlled, Naruto said from the shadows. Everyone turned to look at him. It was the first time he had spoken during the meeting. Explain, Mei commanded. Naruto stepped into the light. I've been watching him during his episodes. His chakra feels wrong, tainted, like there's something else mixed in with his natural energy. Ao frowned. You can sense that. Sometimes, when he's having one of his attacks, I can feel something foreign in his chakra signature, something that doesn't belong to him. Mei leaned forward, interested. What kind of foreign presence? I don't know exactly, but it feels like genjutsu, advanced genjutsu, the kind that would require constant reinforcement to maintain. The room fell silent. If Naruto was right, it meant someone had been controlling their Mizukage for months. Possibly years. That's a serious accusation, Ao said carefully. It's not an accusation, Naruto replied calmly. It's an observation. What you do with that information is up to you. Mei stood and walked to the window, looking out at the mist-covered village. If someone is controlling Yagura, we need to find out who, and we need to stop them. How do you propose we do that? Asked an advisor. We can't exactly walk up to the Mizukage and ask if he's being mind-controlled. Actually, Naruto said we can, but not directly. All eyes turned to him again. I can get close to him during one of his episodes. If I'm right about the genjutsu, I might be able to disrupt it, but I'll need backup, and I'll need permission to act without orders. Mei considered this. Using a 12-year-old to potentially attack the Mizukage was dangerous in every possible way, but Naruto had never failed a mission and his instincts had proven reliable. What do you need? She asked. Access to the Mizukage's compound, a distraction to draw away most of his guards, and someone to watch my back in case things go wrong. I'll watch your back, Mei said immediately. Her advisors looked shocked. Mei-sama, if this goes wrong. Then I'll take responsibility, she cut them off. But if we're right, we'll be saving our village from an enemy we never knew we had. 2 days later, opportunity presented itself. Yagura had another episode during a council meeting, attacking 3 of his own advisors before barricading himself in his private chambers. The compound was in chaos as medical teams tended to the wounded and ANBU tried to figure out how to approach their unstable leader. Naruto moved through the confusion like smoke. His small size and dark clothing made him nearly invisible in the panicked crowd. He reached Yagura's chambers just as the Mizukage's screaming stopped. The door was locked, but locks had never been much of an obstacle for Naruto. He slipped inside to find Yagura sitting at his desk, staring blankly at the wall. His eyes were unfocused, pupils dilated, drool ran down his chin. Lord Mizukage, Naruto said quietly. No response. Yagura didn't even seem to hear him. Naruto approached carefully, extending his senses. There, he could feel it now. Foreign chakra wrapped around Yagura's mind like chains, complex, powerful, and definitely not natural. The genjutsu was masterfully crafted. Whoever had done this was a true expert in mental manipulation, but even the best genjutsu had weak points. Naruto placed his hand on Yagura's shoulder and focused his own chakra, not to attack but to disrupt, like throwing a stone into still water. The reaction was immediate. Yagura's eyes snapped into focus and he jerked away from Naruto's touch. Who are you? He demanded, but his voice sounded more confused than threatening. Where am I? You're in your office, Lord Mizukage. My name is Naruto. You've been under enemy control. Yagura blinked, looking around the room as if seeing it for the first time. Enemy control? What are you talking about? Someone has been using genjutsu to manipulate you, advanced mental conditioning. Do you remember the last few months? Yagura's face went pale as fragmented memories surfaced. The attacks, the killings, that was me. That was someone wearing your face, Naruto corrected. The real you has been locked away. But who could? Yagura's eyes widened in realization. The masked man. He came to me months ago, said he wanted to discuss peace between our villages, but when I tried to refuse his terms. He put you under his control, Naruto finished. How did you break it? I disrupted the chakra flow maintaining the genjutsu, but it's not permanent. Whoever did this will try to re-establish control as soon as they realize you're free. Yagura stood up, steadier now but still shaky. Then we need to act quickly. The village needs to know what happened. They need to know I wasn't responsible for. Actually, Naruto interrupted, there might be a better way. What do you mean? If we announce that you've been freed from enemy control, the person responsible will know their plan failed. They'll either try again or abandon their operation entirely. Either way, we lose our chance to identify them. Yagura frowned. What are you suggesting? That you step down voluntarily, claim that the stress of leadership has been too much, that you need time to recover. It gives us time to investigate while keeping our enemy from knowing we've discovered their plot. And who would take over as Mizukage? Naruto glanced toward the door where Mei was waiting. Someone who's already been doing most of the real work anyway. An hour later, Yagura made his announcement. He was stepping down as Mizukage, effective immediately due to health concerns. Mei Terumi would serve as his successor with his full support and endorsement. The village was shocked but relieved. Everyone had seen Yagura's erratic behavior. His voluntary retirement seemed like the best solution for everyone involved. That evening, in the privacy of Mei's new office, the three of them discussed what came next. The masked man Yagura described, Mei said. Any idea who he might be? Someone with extraordinary genjutsu skills, Naruto replied. Someone who could maintain complex mental control over a Jinchuriki for months without being detected. That's not a common ability. And someone with reasons to want Kirigakure destabilized, Yagura added. The attacks I made, they targeted our most skilled ninja, our best and brightest. Someone was trying to weaken us systematically. Mei nodded grimly. We'll need to be careful. If this enemy realizes their plan has failed, they might try more direct action. Let them try, Naruto said quietly. Now that we know what to look for, they won't catch us off guard again. Yagura looked at the boy who had freed him from months of mental imprisonment. I owe you a debt, Naruto, more than I can ever repay. You don't owe me anything, Naruto replied. I serve the village's interests. Stopping an enemy infiltrator was just good strategy. But as he said it, Naruto realized something had changed. For the first time since leaving Konoha, he felt like he truly belonged somewhere. Not just as a weapon or a tool, but as someone whose judgment was trusted and whose abilities were valued. Mei seemed to sense his thoughts. You did well today, Naruto. Very well. I think it's time we discussed your future training. What kind of training? The kind reserved for my most trusted operatives, advanced techniques, classified jutsu, the sort of skills that turn good ninja into legends. Naruto felt something warm flicker in his chest, not the desperate need for approval he had once felt, but something quieter, something that felt like satisfaction. When do we start? He asked. Mei smiled. Tomorrow, but tonight we celebrate. Kirigakure is free from its chains, and we have you to thank for it. Later that night, as Naruto sat in his apartment looking out at the village he had helped save, he thought about how far he had come. 5 years ago, he had been a forgotten child in a village that didn't want him. Now he was a trusted operative in a village that valued his abilities. He had found something here that he had never had in Konoha, not just acceptance but respect, not just a place to belong but a place where he could grow. And as he watched the mist swirl around the buildings below, Naruto allowed himself to imagine what he might become if he continued on this path. The thought should have excited him. Instead, it filled him with a cold, quiet determination that was somehow more powerful than excitement. He was exactly where he needed to be. The Chunin exams came to Kirigakure like a political storm. 5 years after establishing her rule, Mei had decided to host the joint exams as a show of the village's renewed strength. Ninja from all 5 major villages would compete, including teams from Konoha. Naruto, now 12 years old, stood with the other Mist Genin in the examination hall. His appearance had changed over the years, taller, leaner, with the quiet confidence of someone who had killed and survived. His blonde hair had darkened to a dirty gold from years in the perpetual mist, and his blue eyes held none of the warmth they once had. "Interesting turnout this year," muttered Chijiro, who had finally made Genin after years of training. "I heard one of the Konoha teams has the Hawkage son." Naruto's expression didn't change, but something cold flickered in his eyes. Which one? "The Nine-Tails Jinchuriki, Menma Uzumaki, I think his name was." Of course it was Menma. Of course his replacement had made it this far. The golden child, beloved and trained, everything Naruto had never been allowed to be. "You know him?" Chijiro asked, noticing Naruto's stillness. "We've met," Naruto said quietly. The doors to the examination hall opened and the competing teams filed in. Naruto watched them with the calculating gaze he had developed over years of mission work. Sand Genin moving with desert-hardened efficiency. Cloud Ninja crackling with barely contained lightning chakra. Stone Genin solid and unmovable as their homeland. And then the Konoha teams entered. Naruto spotted them immediately. Team 7, the legendary combination that everyone expected to dominate the exams. Menma Uzumaki walked in the center, orange jacket bright against the gray walls, grinning and waving at the crowd like he owned the place. To his left walked Sasuke Uchiha, dark-haired and brooding, clearly annoyed by his teammates' cheerful display. To his right was Sakura Haruno, pink hair tied back, trying to look serious but obviously excited. Behind them walked their Jonin instructor, Kakashi Hadake, the copy ninja himself. Naruto felt nothing as he looked at them. No anger, no sadness, no regret. They were just another team from another village. Potential obstacles to eliminate if necessary. But then Menma's eyes swept the room and found his. For a moment, both brothers stared at each other across the crowded hall. Menma's grin faltered. His face went pale, then flushed red with confusion and something that might have been guilt. "Naruto," he whispered loud enough for his teammates to hear. Sasuke and Sakura turned to look where Menma was staring. Their reactions were immediate and telling. Sasuke's eyes widened in shock. Sakura gasped and took a step backward. The dead last of their academy class stood among the Mist Genin, wearing their headband, carrying their sword. The boy they had dismissed and forgotten was here, representing their enemy. "That's impossible," Sakura breathed. "He died. Everyone said he died." "Clearly not," Sasuke said, his voice tight with something that sounded like fear. Menma started to move toward Naruto, but Kakashi's hand fell on his shoulder, stopping him. "Not here," the Jonin said quietly. "Not now." The first exam began shortly after a written test designed to evaluate information gathering and analysis skills. Naruto completed it in 15 minutes, answering every question with the cold precision of someone who had been doing real intelligence work for years. Around him, other Genin struggled with questions about enemy troop movements, supply line vulnerabilities, and tactical assessments. For Naruto, they were basic elements of missions he had been running since he was 9. He finished and sat back, letting his gaze drift around the room. Most of the Konoha Genin were sweating over their papers. Menma kept glancing in his direction, clearly distracted. Even Sasuke seemed to be having trouble concentrating. Good emotional turmoil made people sloppy. The second exam took place in a massive forest preserve outside the village. Teams were given scrolls and told to reach the center tower within 5 days. Of course, half the teams had Heaven Scrolls and half had Earth Scrolls. They would need both to pass. Which meant fighting, which meant the real test was about to begin. Naruto's team consisted of himself, Chijiro, and a sensor-type Kunoichi named Amiri. They were given an Earth Scroll and sent into the forest. "So what's the plan?" Amiri asked as they moved through the trees. "We get a Heaven Scroll and reach the tower," Naruto said simply. "From who?" Chijiro pressed. "We need to choose our targets carefully." Naruto was quiet for a moment, sensing the chakra signatures moving through the forest around them. There are 3 signatures moving with the coordinated precision of a well-trained team. "Konoha Team 7, he said. "They have a Heaven Scroll." His teammates exchanged glances. Everyone knew Team 7's reputation. The Jinchuriki, the last Uchiha, and the top Kunoichi of their class, led by a legendary Jonin. "Are you sure that's wise?" Amiri asked nervously. "It's efficient," Naruto replied, already changing direction toward the Konoha team's position. They found Team 7 making camp in a small clearing. Menma was trying to start a fire while Sasuke kept watch and Sakura organized their supplies. Normal genin behavior for normal genin on a normal mission. Naruto signaled his team to spread out and surround the clearing. Then he stepped into the open. "Hello, brother," he said calmly. The reaction was immediate. Menma spun around, the wood for his fire scattering. Sasuke's hand went to his kunai pouch. Sakura scrambled backward. "Naruto," Menma breathed, "you're alive, we thought. Everyone said you were dead." "Dead to you maybe, but I've been very much alive." "Where have you been? Mom and Dad have been looking for you for years. They never gave up hope." "Did they?" Naruto's voice was flat, emotionless. "Funny, they never seemed to notice I existed when I lived in the same house." Menma flinched as if struck. It wasn't like that." "Wasn't it?" Naruto took a step forward. "Tell me, brother, when was the last time they remembered my birthday before I disappeared?" Silence. Menma's mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. "I see you remember now," Naruto said softly. "Or rather, you remember not remembering." Sasuke stepped forward, tension radiating from every line of his body. "What do you want, Naruto?" For the first time, Naruto looked directly at his former classmate. "Your Heaven Scroll, nothing more, nothing less." "And if we refuse?" Naruto's hand drifted to his sword. "Then I'll take it anyway." "You think you can take all 3 of us?" Sasuke demanded, sharing and spinning to life in his eyes. "I know I can." The words were said with such calm certainty that even Sasuke hesitated. "Prove it," the Uchiha said finally. Naruto drew his sword in a single fluid motion. The blade sang as it cut through the air, and immediately the atmosphere in the clearing changed. This wasn't a training weapon or a standard issue blade. This was something else entirely, a weapon that hummed with barely contained power. "Sasuke, don't," Menma said urgently. "He's different now, can't you feel it?" Sasuke could feel it. The chakra rolling off Naruto was nothing like what he remembered from the academy. This was focused, controlled, dangerous. This was the chakra of someone who had killed before and would kill again without hesitation. But Sasuke was an Uchiha. Pride ran in his blood like fire. He attacked. Fast, precise, deadly, everything the academy had taught him refined by years of additional training. His kunai moved in a perfect arc toward Naruto's throat. Naruto moved like water. He stepped aside at the last possible moment, his sword coming up in a simple parry that sent Sasuke stumbling past him. Before the Uchiha could recover, Naruto's blade was at his throat. "Too slow," Naruto said calmly. "Too obvious, too emotional." Sasuke froze, feeling the cold steel against his skin. "In a real fight, you'd be dead right now," Naruto continued. "Your Sharingan saw my movements, but your body couldn't keep up. Your pride made you predictable." He stepped back, lowering his sword. Sasuke touched his throat, and his fingers came away with a thin line of blood. "The Heaven Scroll," Naruto said, extending his free hand. Menma looked at his fallen teammate, then at Naruto. If I give it to you, will you let us go? I'm not here to kill anyone, Naruto replied. I'm here to pass the exam. With shaking hands, Menma pulled out their heaven scroll and tossed it to Naruto, who caught it without looking. Thank you, Naruto said politely. Then he looked at Menma one more time. For what it's worth, you've gotten stronger, not strong enough, but stronger. Naruto, wait, Menma called as his brother turned to leave. Come home, please, Mom and Dad, they miss you. They realize they made mistakes. Naruto paused but didn't turn around. Home is where people value you while you're there, not after you're gone. I found my home, it isn't with them. He melted back into the forest, leaving Team 7 alone in their clearing. Behind him, he could hear Menma starting to cry. But Naruto felt nothing. The boy who would have been moved by those tears was long dead. 2 days later, his team reached the center tower first. When the exam proctor asked how they had obtained their heaven scroll so quickly, Naruto simply said they had found a team willing to trade. It wasn't technically a lie. The third exam preliminaries took place in a large arena beneath the tower. Only half the remaining teams would advance to the final round, which meant individual fights to determine the survivors. Naruto's first opponent was a Cloud Genin specializing in lightning techniques. The boy was fast, aggressive, and confident. He lasted exactly 30 seconds. His second opponent was from Stone, a defensive specialist who could create earth barriers and launch rock projectiles. He lasted 45 seconds. By the time Naruto faced his third opponent, a Leaf Genin from one of the other teams, word had spread about the Mist Village's secret weapon. The boy surrendered before the match even began. In the viewing area, Kakashi watched with growing concern. The cheerful, if annoying, boy he remembered from the academy had become something else entirely. Something cold and precise and utterly without mercy. He's gotten strong, Mei observed, standing beside the Konoha Jonin. Very strong. What did you do to him? Kakashi asked quietly. Nothing he didn't want us to do. We gave him purpose. We gave him the training he needed to reach his potential. We gave him a place where his abilities were valued. You turned him into a weapon. He was already a weapon, Mei corrected. We just taught him how to use himself properly. Down in the arena, Naruto faced his final preliminary opponent, Sasuke Uchiha, who had fought his way through the brackets with grim determination. The two boys stood across from each other in the center of the arena. Above them, hundreds of spectators leaned forward in anticipation. This was the match everyone wanted to see, the dead last versus the Rookie of the Year. I won't lose to you again, Sasuke said, sharing an already active. You never had a chance to begin with, Naruto replied, drawing his sword. The match lasted 3 minutes. Sasuke used every technique he knew, every trick he had learned, every advantage his bloodline gave him. He was faster than he had been in the forest, more focused, more determined. It wasn't enough. Naruto fought like he had been born with a blade in his hand. Every move was perfect, every counter was precise, every attack was exactly as powerful as it needed to be. He didn't waste motion or energy or time. When it was over, Sasuke lay unconscious on the arena floor, and Naruto stood over him without even breathing hard. The crowd was silent, even the other Jonin instructors looked stunned. Winner Naruto Uzumaki of Kirigakure, the proctor announced. As medics carried Sasuke away, Naruto looked up at the viewing area. His eyes found Menma, who was staring down at him with a mixture of awe and fear. Then his gaze shifted to where Kakashi stood with the other Jonin. The copy ninja was watching him with an unreadable expression. Finally, Naruto looked at Mei, who nodded approvingly. He had done exactly what was expected of him, no more, no less. That evening, in his temporary quarters, Naruto sat by the window looking out at Kirigakure's skyline. Tomorrow would bring the final exam matches. He would face opponents from other villages, demonstrate his skills on an international stage, and officially earn his promotion to Chunin. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. Come in, he called. To his surprise, it was Menma who entered. His brother looked older somehow, like the events of the last few days had aged him years. "That was quite a performance today," Menma said quietly. "It was adequate." "Adequate?" Menma laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You destroyed Sasuke. You made him look like an academy student. He fought emotionally. Emotional fighters are predictable." Menma sat down across from him. "Is that what you think I am, emotional?" "I think you're exactly what they made you to be, their perfect son, their chosen one, their replacement for the son they lost." "They didn't lose you," Menma said desperately. "You left, you chose to leave. I chose to stop waiting for them to remember I existed. But you're here now, you're alive, you're strong, you're incredible. You could come home, you could be part of the family again." Naruto finally turned to look at his brother. "Do you know what I've been doing for the past 5 years, Menma? I've been killing people, enemy ninja, rogue agents, anyone who threatened my village's interests. I've been living in a world where strength is the only currency that matters and weakness gets you buried." Menma paled. "That doesn't mean." "It means I'm not the brother you remember. That boy died the night they forgot his birthday. What you're looking at now is what grew from his corpse." "I don't believe that." "Then you're still as naive as ever." Menma stood up abruptly. "Fine, if that's how you want it to be, but know this, I'm going to get stronger, strong enough to beat you, strong enough to drag you home if I have to." Naruto looked at him with something that might have been pity. "You can try." After Menma left, Naruto returned to his vigil by the window. Somewhere out there, his former family was probably discussing what they had learned today, probably planning how to approach him, how to convince him to return. They still didn't understand. He wasn't lost. He wasn't confused or misguided or in need of rescue. He was exactly where he belonged. And tomorrow, he would prove it to the entire ninja world. The final rounds of the Chunin exams drew crowds from across the ninja world. Dignitaries, merchants, and curious civilians filled the massive stadium that had been constructed specifically for the event. In the cage viewing box, 5 of the most powerful people in the world watched as the remaining contestants prepared for their matches. Naruto stood in the competitor waiting area, observing his fellow finalists. 8 genin had made it this far, representing the cream of their respective villages. Most looked nervous, excited, or determined. Normal emotions for normal ninja facing the biggest test of their young careers. Naruto felt nothing but calm focus. "Impressive showing in the preliminaries," said a voice behind him. He turned to see Gaara of the Sand, the one-tailed Jinchuriki. The red-haired boy studied him with interest that felt distinctly predatory. "You as well," Naruto replied evenly. "I can smell it on you," Gaara continued, his voice barely above a whisper. "The scent of blood you've killed before." "Yes. Many times. Enough times." Gaara smiled, and it wasn't a pleasant expression. "Good, I was beginning to think this tournament would be boring." Before Naruto could respond, the proctor called for the first match. He watched as 2 genin he didn't recognize fought with the awkward enthusiasm of academy graduates. Competent, but nothing special. His own match was third. As he walked onto the arena floor, the crowd noise washed over him like a distant ocean. Thousands of eyes focused on him, but he felt no pressure, no stage fright. He had been in situations far more dangerous than this. His opponent was a Cloud Genin named Karui, a young woman with red hair and dual swords. She looked confident as she took her position across from him. "I've heard about you," she called out. "The Mist Village's secret weapon. Let's see if you live up to the hype." Naruto drew his sword without comment. The blade caught the afternoon light, and for a moment the stadium fell silent. "Begin," the proctor shouted. Karui moved first, both swords flashing in complex patterns as she closed the distance between them. She was faster than most of the opponents Naruto had faced in the preliminaries. Her technique was solid, her footwork precise. It wasn't enough. Naruto's blade moved in a single, perfect arc. Karui's swords went flying from her hands, and she found herself flat on her back with cold steel at her throat. The fight had lasted exactly 4 seconds. The stadium erupted in shocked murmurs. In the cage box, the Reikage leaned forward with interest. Interesting, the fourth Reikage rumbled. That's not standard Mist Village sword work. No, Mei agreed calmly, it isn't. Naruto helped Karui to her feet with polite efficiency, then walked off the arena floor without acknowledging the crowd's reaction. His next match in the semifinals was against a stone genin who specialized in earth jutsu. The boy tried to turn the arena floor into a maze of rock walls and pitfalls. Naruto cut through the entire construction in 3 strokes, then knocked his opponent unconscious with the flat of his blade. That fight lasted 15 seconds. By the time he reached the finals, the atmosphere in the stadium had changed. What had started as excitement was becoming something closer to unease. This wasn't normal genin-level ability. This was something else entirely. His final opponent was Gaara. The Sand Jinchuriki walked onto the arena floor with his usual emotionless expression, but Naruto could sense the anticipation radiating from him. This was what Gaara had been waiting for, a real fight against someone who might actually challenge him. Finally, Gaara said as they faced each other in the center of the arena, "Someone who might make me feel alive." Sand began to swirl around him, forming defensive barriers and offensive projectiles simultaneously. His control was impressive, the mark of someone who had been using his abilities in real combat. Naruto simply stood there, sword at his side, waiting. Gaara attacked first. Waves of sand crashed toward Naruto like a tsunami, moving fast enough to crush bone and bury a grown man. The attack covered half the arena in seconds. Naruto disappeared. Not teleportation, simple speed. He moved faster than most eyes could follow, his blade carving through the sand like it was air. By the time Gaara realized what had happened, Naruto was behind him. The sword stopped an inch from Gaara's neck. "Yields," Naruto said quietly. But something was wrong. Gaara's sand had formed an automatic defense, creating a barrier between them. More concerning, Naruto could feel something else stirring inside the other boy. Something vast and angry and definitely not human. Gaara's eyes went wide, then rolled back in his head. When they focused again, they held a different kind of consciousness. Finally, rumbled a voice that definitely didn't belong to a 13-year-old boy, a worthy opponent. The One Tail was awakening. Naruto felt the shift immediately. The chakra signature he had been reading changed, becoming something monstrous. Around them, sand began to move with purpose that had nothing to do with Gaara's conscious control. In the stands, panic was beginning to spread as people sensed the terrible presence manifesting on the arena floor. "Everyone out," Mei's voice cut across the stadium. "Evacuation protocol now." But it was too late. Gaara's transformation was accelerating, his body bulging and changing as the One Tail forced its way into the physical world. Sand whirled around him in a miniature cyclone, and his voice became an inhuman roar. Naruto could have run, should have run. This was beyond the scope of a genin exam. Instead, he did something that surprised everyone, including himself. He got angry. Not the hot, explosive anger of a child having a tantrum. This was something else entirely: cold, controlled, and absolutely devastating. For the first time since leaving Konoha, Naruto felt genuine emotion crack through his carefully maintained composure. The air around him began to change. Pressure built like an approaching storm, making it hard to breathe. The very atmosphere seemed to thicken, becoming heavy and oppressive. In the stands, people began to feel dizzy. Some of the weaker civilians actually fainted, overcome by a presence they couldn't understand but their bodies recognized as absolutely dominant. Even the other ninja felt it. Chunin and Jonin, who had faced death dozens of times, found themselves struggling to remain standing. Their instincts screamed at them to submit, to bow, to acknowledge the presence of something far above them in the natural hierarchy. Naruto's eyes had changed. They still looked human, but there was something behind them now, something ancient and implacable and utterly without mercy. "Enough," he said. The word wasn't loud, but it carried across the entire stadium with perfect clarity. More than that, it carried weight, authority, the absolute certainty of someone who had never been refused when he gave a direct command. The partially transformed Gaara actually stopped moving. The One-Tail's consciousness, ancient and powerful as it was, suddenly found itself facing something that made it hesitate. Naruto raised his sword and chakra began to flow into the blade. Not the careful, controlled enhancement he usually used, but something far more potent. The air around the weapon began to shimmer, and the steel itself seemed to become sharper, more real than everything around it. I said enough. This time, the command carried physical force. The pressure in the air became crushing. Hundreds of ninja in the stands felt their knees buckle. Even some of the Jonin had to grab onto railings to keep from falling. The One-Tail's consciousness recoiled. In all its centuries of existence, it had never encountered anything like this. This wasn't chakra or jutsu or any kind of technique it recognized. This was something else entirely, something that spoke to the deepest parts of its instinctual mind and told it to submit. Gaara's transformation reversed itself. The sand fell away from his body and his features returned to normal. He collapsed to his knees, unconscious but breathing. The oppressive presence faded as suddenly as it had appeared. The air became breathable again, and the crushing weight on everyone's shoulders lifted. Naruto stood in the center of the arena, looking perfectly normal except for his eyes, which still held that dangerous light. The stadium was silent, completely silent. Thousands of people stared at a 13-year-old boy who had just dominated a Jinchuriki's transformation through sheer force of will. Winner Naruto Uzumaki of Kirigakure, the proctor announced in a shaky voice. As medics rushed to tend to Gaara, Naruto sheathed his sword and walked off the arena floor. He moved with the same calm efficiency he always displayed, as if nothing unusual had happened. But everyone who had been in that stadium knew they had witnessed something unprecedented, something that would be talked about in hushed whispers for years to come. In the cage box, 5 of the most powerful ninja in the world sat in stunned silence. What the hell was that? The Reikage finally asked. I don't know, the Tsuchikage admitted. I've never seen anything like it. Conqueror's Haki said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. What? The Kazekage asked. It's just a term from some old texts I've been researching, something about the will to dominate others through pure presence. I thought it was just theoretical. Well, it's not theoretical anymore, the Hokage said grimly. Minato had been watching his lost son with a mixture of pride and terror. The question is, what do we do about it? Nothing, Mei said firmly. He's proven himself today. He's earned his promotion, and he's proven that Kirigakure has assets that shouldn't be underestimated. Assets? Minato's voice was strained. That's my son you're talking about. Is he? Mei asked calmly. Because from where I'm sitting, he looks like a mist ninja who just won our village a great deal of international respect. That evening, Naruto sat in the temporary quarters provided for the exam participants. His official promotion to Chunin had been processed immediately. No one was interested in delaying recognition after what they had witnessed. A soft knock interrupted his meditation. Come in, he called. Mei entered carrying a bottle of sake and 2 cups. Congratulations, she said, pouring drinks for both of them. That was quite a display. It was necessary, Naruto replied, accepting the cup. Was it? You could have retreated when Gaara began transforming. Let the Jonin handle it. Could I have? People were in danger, my people. Mei smiled at that. Your people. Kirigakure ninja, civilians under our protection. Yes, my people. Good answer. She raised her cup in a toast. To our newest Chunin and to the future of the village hidden in the mist. They drank in comfortable silence for a moment. The other cage are nervous, Mei said eventually. What you did today, they're not sure how to classify it. Does it matter? It might. Power like that draws attention, not all of it friendly. Naruto considered this. Are you worried? About you? No. About the people who might try to use or control you? Yes. No one controls me, Naruto said quietly. I learned that lesson a long time ago. I know that's what makes you valuable and dangerous. Another knock interrupted them. This time, it was a village messenger with an urgent report. Mizukage-sama, the young ninja said breathlessly. Priority intelligence from our border stations. Large force movements detected in Fire Country. Multiple divisions moving toward our borders. May frowned. How large? At least 3,000 ninja, ma'am, mixed units but heavily weighted toward combat specialists. Naruto set down his sake cup. How long until they reach our territory? Best estimate is 48 hours, sir. May looked at Naruto. It seems someone took your display today as a declaration of hostilities. Or as an opportunity, Naruto replied. Strike while our best genin are tired from the exams. Our village is full of foreign dignitaries and our attention is divided. Poor timing on their part, May said grimly. They're about to discover that our newest Chunin doesn't need rest. She turned to the messenger. General mobilization, all available ninja to defensive positions. Send word to our allies, we may need their support. Yes, ma'am. As the messenger rushed out, May looked at Naruto. Ready for your first real test as a Chunin. Naruto stood and checked his sword. I've been ready for years. Outside the window, storm clouds were gathering over Kirigakure. But inside the room, two of the village's most dangerous residents were smiling. The real test was about to begin. The war came at dawn. Naruto stood on Kirigakure's outer walls, watching as enemy forces emerged from the morning mist like ghosts. 3,000 ninja moved in coordinated formations, too organized to be a spontaneous attack, too large to be anything but a full invasion. They're not wearing any village headbands, observed Ao, studying the approaching army through his Byakugan. Mercenaries, maybe, or missing nin. No, Naruto said quietly. Look at their formations, their discipline. These aren't hired thugs. May appeared beside them in a swirl of mist, her face grim. Intelligence reports just came in. It's the Akatsuki, all of them. Naruto felt something cold settle in his stomach. He had heard whispers about the organization of S-rank criminals, but seeing their full force deployed was something else entirely. What do they want? Ao asked. Me, Naruto replied simply. May looked at him sharply. What? Think about it, they show up 2 days after I demonstrate unusual abilities in front of the entire ninja world. They bring overwhelming force against a village that hasn't threatened them. This isn't about conquest or territory. They want to capture you, May realized. Or eliminate me if capture proves impossible. The first explosions began at the village's outer defenses. Even from their position on the walls, they could feel the ground shake as jutsu of incredible power tore through prepared positions. Orders, Mizukage-sama? Ao asked. May was quiet for a moment, calculating odds and options. 3,000 ninja against their available forces. Even with their defensive advantages, the math wasn't favorable. Evacuate the civilians to the deep shelters, she said finally. All Chunin and above to defensive positions. Academy students and genin to support roles only. And me, Naruto asked. You stay close to me. If they want you, they'll have to go through our best defenses first. But even as she said it, May knew it wouldn't be enough. The Akatsuki had come prepared for a war, and Kirigakure, despite its strength, wasn't ready for this level of assault. The battle raged for hours. Naruto fought alongside May and the village's elite ninja, cutting through enemy forces with methodical efficiency. His sword carved through enemy jutsu like they were made of paper, and his strange ability to intimidate opponents through sheer presence proved invaluable in the chaos of combat. But the enemy kept coming. For every Akatsuki member they drove back, 2 more appeared. For every formation they broke, another took its place. By midday, they had been pushed back to the village's inner defenses. We can't keep this up, Ao reported, blood streaming from a gash across his forehead. They're wearing us down through attrition. Reinforcements, May asked. 12 hours out at best. We requested support from Konoha, but they're probably not eager to help us," Mei finished grimly. That was when Pain himself appeared on the battlefield. The leader of the Akatsuki stood atop a destroyed building, his ringed eyes surveying the chaos below with cold calculation. When he spoke, his voice somehow carried across the entire battlefield. "Naruto Uzumaki," he called out, "you have something that belongs to us. Surrender yourself and this battle ends. Continue to resist and your village burns." Naruto stepped forward, but Mei grabbed his arm. "Don't," she said urgently. "It's what they want." "It's also the only way to save lives," Naruto replied. "There has to be another way." "Look around," Naruto said quietly. "Half our defenses are down, our ninja are exhausted. How many more have to die for my sake?" Before Mei could answer, Pain raised his hand. The air around him began to distort, and Naruto recognized the preparation for a massive jutsu. "Shinra Tensei," Pain intoned. The repulsive force that erupted from his position was like nothing Naruto had ever seen. Buildings crumbled like sandcastles. The very ground cracked and buckled. Ninja who had survived hours of combat were crushed in seconds. And the attack was aimed directly at the building where Mei stood. Naruto moved without thinking, not toward Pain, but toward Mei. His body intercepted the devastating force meant for her, and he felt bones crack as the invisible pressure slammed into him. But it wasn't enough. The jutsu was too powerful, the angle too direct. Mei was going to die, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. That was when she moved. Mei threw herself in front of Naruto, taking the full force of Pain's follow-up attack. The concentrated blast of repulsive energy caught her in the chest and sent her flying backward into a pile of rubble. "Mei," Naruto's voice cracked for the first time in years. He reached her side in seconds, pulling debris away with frantic hands. She was alive, but badly injured, ribs broken, internal bleeding, struggling to breathe. "Why?" he demanded, his carefully maintained composure finally shattering. "Why did you do that?" Mei smiled through the blood on her lips. "Because someone has to care about you for yourself, not just your power." "That's not, you can't just." "I've always loved you," she whispered, her hand finding his. "From the first day you walked into this village, I knew you were special, not because of what you could do, but because of who you are." Naruto felt something break inside his chest, something he had kept locked away since his 7th birthday. The wall he had built around his heart cracked, and for the first time in years, he felt genuine emotion flood through him. "Don't die," he said desperately. "Please don't die." "Not planning to," Mei managed, though her breathing was getting weaker. "But if I do, promise me something." "Anything." "Don't let this make you cold again. Don't let them take away what we found together." Naruto looked down at the woman who had given him a home, who had believed in him, who had just sacrificed herself for his sake. The woman who loved him not for what he could do for her village, but for who he was underneath all the power and control. Something fundamental shifted inside him. The ice around his heart didn't melt, it transformed into something else. Something harder but warmer. Something that could feel love without losing the strength to protect what mattered. "I promise," he said softly. Then he stood up, and his eyes found Pain across the battlefield. The pressure that had appeared during the Chunin exams returned, but this time it was different, more focused, more personal. This wasn't the abstract dominance of a natural predator. This was the focused rage of someone who had found something worth protecting and seen it threatened. Pain actually took a step backward. "Interesting," the Akatsuki leader said. "So the weapon has found something to care about." "She's not a thing," Naruto said, his voice carrying across the battlefield with unnatural clarity. "And I'm not a weapon." He drew his sword and chakra began to flow into the blade, but this time the energy was different, stronger, more complete, as if some missing piece had finally fallen into place. "I'm someone who loves her," Naruto continued, raising the weapon, "and you just made a very serious mistake." The battle that followed was unlike anything the ninja world had seen. Naruto fought with the technical precision he had developed over years of training, but now it was powered by genuine emotion. Not the cold calculation of a living weapon, but the focused determination of someone protecting what mattered most. Pain was powerful, arguably one of the strongest ninja alive, but he had never faced anything like what Naruto had become. The combination of skill, power, and pure emotional drive was overwhelming. The fight ended when Naruto's blade, charged with more chakra than should have been possible, cut through Pain's final Shinra Tensei and left the Akatsuki leader on his knees. "Yield," Naruto said, his sword at Pain's throat. "An impressive display," Pain admitted, "but this changes nothing. We will return, we will keep coming until—" "No," Naruto interrupted, "you won't." Something in his tone made Pain look up sharply. "Because if you ever threaten her again," Naruto continued, his voice deadly quiet, "I will hunt down every member of your organization and show you what real pain looks like." Pain studied the young man's face and saw something that made him reconsider his options. This wasn't empty bravado or teenage posturing. This was a promise from someone who clearly had the power to keep it. "We withdraw," he said finally. "You run," Naruto corrected, "and you remember why." As the Akatsuki forces retreated, Naruto rushed back to Mei's side. She was still conscious, though barely. "Did we win?" she asked weakly. "We survived," Naruto replied. "That's enough." "Good, I'd hate to think I got myself blown up for nothing." Despite everything, Naruto found himself smiling. "You're going to be fine, the medical team is on the way." "Naruto." "Yes. When I get better, we need to talk about what this means." Naruto looked down at her, this woman who had given him everything, a home, a purpose, training, respect, and now love. The woman who had been willing to die for him without expecting anything in return. "I'd like that," he said softly. For the first time since leaving Konoha, Naruto felt genuinely happy. Not satisfied or accomplished, but happy. The cold, calculating weapon was still there, would always be part of him. But now there was something else too, something warm and human and worth fighting for. As the medical team arrived and began treating Mei's injuries, Naruto sat beside her and realized that everything was about to change. He was no longer just a rogue ninja serving his adopted village's interests. He was someone with something precious to protect. And that made him more dangerous than he had ever been before. But it also made him more human. The war was over, but Naruto's real story was just beginning. 3 months had passed since the Akatsuki attack, and Kirigakure was slowly healing. The village's defenses had been rebuilt, stronger than before. Trade routes were reopening. Life was returning to normal. But across the ninja world, tensions were rising. Mei sat at her desk, reading intelligence reports with growing concern. Her injuries from the battle had healed completely, leaving only faint scars as reminders of how close she had come to death. But the political situation was becoming increasingly unstable. "Another border skirmish between Stone and Cloud," she told Naruto, who stood by the window watching the harbor. "And there are reports of strange activity in the Land of Fire." "What kind of activity?" Naruto asked without turning around. "Missing patrol units, unexplained explosions, and rumors about the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki acting erratically." That got Naruto's attention. He turned to face her, his expression carefully neutral. "Menma. According to our sources, he's been showing signs of increasing aggression. Violent outbursts during training, arguments with his instructors. His parents are apparently concerned." Naruto was quiet for a moment. Despite everything, hearing about his family still created a complex mix of emotions he preferred not to examine too closely. "The Nine-Tails has always been volatile," he said finally. "Maybe it's just normal Jinchuriki development. Maybe something else is influencing him." Before Naruto could respond, an urgent messenger arrived. The young ninja looked pale and shaken as he handed Mei a sealed scroll. Priority intelligence from our Konoha contact, Mizukage-sama, marked as extremely urgent. Mei broke the seal and read quickly. Her face went white. What is it? Naruto asked. The fourth Hokage and his wife are dead, Mei said quietly, murdered in their own home last night. Naruto felt the world shift around him. What? Their son Menma is missing. Initial reports suggest he may be responsible. The words didn't make sense at first. Naruto stared at Mei, trying to process what she had just told him. Minato and Kushina dead, killed by their own son, the golden child who had been everything Naruto was not. That's impossible, he said finally. Menma wouldn't, he's not capable of. According to the report, there were signs of a struggle. Ninetales chakra residue throughout the house, and witnesses saw someone matching Menma's description fleeing the scene. Naruto sank into a chair, his mind reeling. His parents, no, not his parents anymore, but the people who had raised him were dead, killed by the brother who had been chosen over him. There's more, Mei said gently. Intelligence suggests Menma has fully merged with the Nine Tails. He's no longer just a Jinchuriki, he's become something else entirely. A perfect Jinchuriki, Naruto realized. He achieved complete synchronization. By killing the people who sealed the beast inside him in the first place. The psychological trauma apparently shattered whatever barriers existed between his consciousness and the fox's. Naruto stood and walked back to the window, staring out at the gray sky. He should feel something, he knew. Grief for his dead parents, perhaps. Shock at his brother's transformation. But all he felt was a cold, calculating assessment of what this meant for the ninja world. He'll be incredibly powerful now, Naruto said eventually. A perfect Jinchuriki with no moral restraints and years of built-up resentment. He'll be unstable, unpredictable, and absolutely deadly. Our intelligence suggests he's already left Fire Country, destination unknown. He'll go somewhere he can build power without interference, probably recruit followers who share his grievances against the established order. Mei studied his profile carefully. How are you handling this news? Naruto was quiet for a long moment. They made their choice years ago. They chose him over me, trained him, loved him, gave him everything I never had. Now they've paid the price for creating a monster. That's rather cold, even for you. Is it? They turned their backs on one son and spoiled the other until he became entitled, arrogant, and unstable. When the Nine Tails offered him ultimate power, he was weak enough to take it regardless of the cost. This is the logical result of their choices. Mei approached him carefully. And what about you? How does this affect your plans? It doesn't. My life is here now. My loyalties are to this village and to you. What happens to the remnants of my old family is irrelevant. But even as he said it, Naruto knew it wasn't entirely true. Menma represented a threat not just to the ninja world, but to everything Naruto had built in Kirigakure. A perfect Jinchuriki with a grudge against the established order would inevitably target strong villages and their leaders. Including Mei. We need to prepare, he said suddenly. For what? For him to come here eventually. Menma was always competitive, always jealous of anyone who might be stronger than him. When he finds out what I've become, what I've achieved, he'll want to prove himself superior. You think he'll challenge you directly? I think he'll try to destroy everything I care about first, starting with you. Mei felt a chill that had nothing to do with the weather. How long do we have? Months, maybe a year. He'll want to gather strength first, test his new abilities, but eventually he'll come. They were interrupted by another messenger, this one bearing the seal of the 5-Cage Emergency Council. Mizukage-sama, the ninja said breathlessly. You're requested to attend an emergency summit in Iron Country. The situation in Fire Country has triggered international security protocols. Mei took the message and read it quickly. When? Tomorrow, ma'am, all 5-Cage are expected to attend. After the messenger left, Mei looked at Naruto. Come with me. To a cage summit, I'm not qualified for that level of diplomacy. You're the only person who truly understands Menma's psychology. The other cage need to hear your assessment of the threat he represents. Naruto considered this. They'll want to treat him as a rogue Jinchuriki to be captured and contained. They won't understand that he's chosen to become something far worse. Then you'll need to make them understand. The next day, they traveled to Iron Country together. The summit was held in a secure facility designed specifically for meetings between the most powerful people in the ninja world. Heavy security, neutral territory, and enough defensive measures to withstand almost any attack. The other 4 kage were already assembled when Mei and Naruto arrived. The Tsuchikage looked ancient and tired. The Reikage radiated barely contained aggression. The Kazekage seemed lost in thought. And the acting Hokage Danzo Shimura, who had assumed leadership after Minato's death, watched Naruto with calculating eyes. Mizukage, Danzo said as they took their seats. I was surprised to hear you brought an advisor. Naruto has unique insights into the current crisis, Mei replied calmly. Does he? The Reikage leaned forward. This is the boy who dominated a Jinchuriki during the Chunin exams, isn't it? I am, Naruto said simply. Interesting, and now another Jinchuriki has gone rogue and committed patricide. Quite a coincidence. There was an implied accusation in the Reikage's tone that made the air in the room tense. Are you suggesting I had something to do with Menma's transformation? Naruto asked, his voice perfectly level. I'm suggesting that Jinchuriki don't usually achieve perfect synchronization through murder unless something triggers the process. You're right, Naruto replied. Something did trigger it. Years of being told he was special, chosen, destined for greatness. When the Nine Tails offered him ultimate power, his ego wouldn't let him refuse. You seem very confident about his motivations, Danzo observed. I'm his brother. The revelation created a moment of stunned silence. Brother, the Tsuchikage wheezed, you're Minato's other son. I was, until they decided I wasn't worth remembering. This changes things, the Kazekage said quietly. Your perspective on Menma's psychology could be invaluable. What I can tell you, Naruto said, standing and moving to the center of the room, is that you're all thinking about this wrong. You're treating him as a rogue ninja who happens to be a Jinchuriki. That's not what he is anymore. Then what is he? The Reikage demanded. He's a perfect Jinchuriki who believes the world owes him everything and has the power to take it by force. He's not interested in conquest or territory or even revenge. He wants recognition. He wants everyone to acknowledge that he's the strongest, the most important, the most deserving of respect and fear. How do we stop someone like that? Asked the Tsuchikage. You don't negotiate with him, you don't try to reason with him, you don't offer him deals or compromises. You either defeat him completely or he destroys everything you care about while proving his superiority. And can he be defeated? Danzo asked. Naruto was quiet for a moment. Yes, but not by any one village, not even by the traditional alliances. He's too powerful now and he'll only get stronger as he masters his abilities. What do you recommend? Mei asked. Temporary cooperation between all 5 villages. Share intelligence, coordinate responses, and prepare for a war unlike anything we've seen before. You're asking us to unite against a single individual, the Reikage said skeptically. I'm asking you to unite against someone who can level cities and has no moral restraint stopping him from doing exactly that. The cage exchanged glances. The idea of full cooperation between traditionally rival villages was almost unprecedented. There's something else, Naruto added. Eventually, he'll come for me. When he does, everyone around me becomes a target. I want that confrontation to happen on terms that minimize civilian casualties. You're planning to face him alone? Mei asked, alarm in her voice. If necessary. That's not acceptable, she said firmly. We don't sacrifice our people for political convenience. Even if it means saving thousands of innocent lives. Before Mei could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the facility. Emergency lights flashed, and the voice of the facility commander echoed through the building. Security breach, unknown hostile approaching from the south, all personnel to emergency positions. Through the reinforced windows, they could see a figure walking calmly across the snowy landscape toward the building. Even at a distance, the massive chakra signature was unmistakable. "He found us," Naruto said quietly. Menma had come to the summit, and from the relaxed way he was walking, he clearly wasn't worried about the facility's defenses. "How is that possible?" the Kazekage demanded. "This location was classified." "He's a perfect Jinchuriki now," Naruto replied, watching his brothers approach. "The Ninetales has senses we can't understand. If he wanted to find us, distance and secrecy wouldn't stop him." "What does he want?" the Reikage asked. "To make a statement, to show the assembled leadership of the ninja world that he's not afraid of anyone." As if summoned by their conversation, Menma's voice boomed across the landscape, amplified by Ninetales' chakra until it could be heard for miles. "Brother," he called out, "I know you're in there. Come out and face me. Let's show these Kage what real power looks like." Naruto looked around the room at the 5 most powerful political figures in the ninja world. "Meeting adjourned," he said grimly, and headed for the door. The real war was about to begin. The Iron Country facility's defensive systems activated as Naruto stepped outside to face his brother. Automated weapons tracked Menma's approach while barrier jutsu flickered to life around the building's perimeter. None of it mattered. Menma walked through the defenses like they didn't exist. Chakra-enhanced bullets dissolved against his Ninetales cloak. Barrier techniques shattered at his touch. The facility's most advanced security measures were reduced to expensive decoration in seconds. He had changed since the Chunin exams. Where once he had been bright and cheerful, now there was something cold and alien in his expression. The Ninetales' influence showed in his eyes, vertical pupils, predatory focus, and an underlying hunger that spoke of endless appetite. "Hello, brother," Menma said as he stopped 20 feet away. "You look well. Kirigakure must agree with you." Menma, Naruto's voice was carefully neutral. "I heard about our parents." "Our parents?" Menma laughed, but there was no humor in it. "They stopped being our parents the day they chose me over you. They stopped being parents entirely when they tried to control what I was becoming." "So you killed them?" "I freed myself, and I freed the Ninetales from their pathetic attempts at suppression." Menma's chakra flared, creating a visible aura around his body. "Do you know what it's like, Naruto, to have this much power and finally be able to use it without restraint?" "I can imagine." "Can you? Because from what I hear, you've been playing house with the Mist Village. Following orders, completing missions, being a good little weapon for people who don't even understand what you are." Naruto felt the familiar cold focus settle over him. "What I am is someone who found a place where I belong." "Belonged?" Menma's eyes widened in mock surprise. "You, the boy they forgot existed, you think you belong anywhere." "I know I do." "Prove it." The challenge hung in the air between them like a drawn blade. Around the facility, the assembled Kage watched from reinforced windows, knowing they were about to witness something unprecedented. "This doesn't have to happen," Naruto said quietly. "You have what you wanted. Power, freedom, the ability to do whatever you choose. Why come here?" "Because it's not enough," Menma replied, his voice rising. "It's never enough until everyone acknowledges what I am, what I've become, and that includes you, dear brother." "I acknowledge your power. You're stronger than you were before." "But not stronger than you," Menma's expression darkened. "That's what everyone whispers, isn't it? The forgotten son who became something greater than the chosen one, the discarded child who surpassed his replacement. Is that what you think this is about?" "I know what this is about." Menma's chakra exploded outward, cracking the ground beneath his feet. "It's about proving that their choice was right, that I am the superior brother, that everything they gave me was justified." Naruto studied his brother's face and saw something that surprised him. Not just anger or jealousy, but desperation. Fear. Menma wasn't just trying to prove his superiority, he was trying to convince himself that he deserved the love he had been given. "They're dead," Naruto said softly. "Their opinion doesn't matter anymore. It matters to me." Menma launched himself forward with Nine Tails' enhanced speed. His first strike could have shattered mountains, powered by chakra that had been building pressure for years. Naruto sidestepped the attack and drew his sword in the same motion. The blade hummed with chakra as it met Menma's clawed hand, stopping the attack cold. "Still playing with toys," Menma sneered, pushing harder against the blade. "Still relying on borrowed power," Naruto replied calmly. They separated and circled each other like predators. The ground around them cracked from the pressure of their combined chakra signatures. "Tell me something," Menma said as they moved. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if they had chosen you instead, if you had been the Jinchuriki?" "No. Liar, I can see it in your eyes. You wonder if you would have turned out like me." "I know I wouldn't have. Because you're so much better than me, so much more controlled and disciplined. Because I learned early that other people's love isn't something you can take by force." Menma's face twisted with rage. "What would you know about love? You ran away, you abandoned your family." "I left people who had already abandoned me. They looked for you, they never stopped looking. They looked for the weapon they thought they had lost, not for the son they never valued." Menma attacked again, this time with coordinated strikes from multiple directions. Nine Tails' chakra arms emerged from his body, creating a storm of claws and energy blasts that would have overwhelmed most opponents. Naruto moved through the attacks like flowing water. His sword traced impossible patterns in the air, deflecting strikes that should have been undodgeable, cutting through energy constructs that should have been intangible. "How?" Menma demanded as his assault was completely neutralized. "How are you doing that?" "Experience," Naruto replied. "Real combat against real enemies who were actually trying to kill me." The Nine Tails has centuries of combat experience. The Nine Tails has centuries of overwhelming opponents through raw power. That's not the same thing. As if summoned by the mention of its name, the Nine Tails' voice echoed from Menma's throat, deeper and more inhuman than his normal speech. "You speak of experience, child. I have fought gods and demons. I have leveled mountains and boiled seas. What could you possibly know that I do not?" Naruto looked directly into his brother's changed eyes and saw the fox's ancient consciousness staring back at him. "I know how to lose," he said simply. The Nine Tails paused, confused by the answer. "I know what it feels like to have nothing, to be discarded and forgotten, to face enemies stronger than myself and survive through skill rather than power." Naruto raised his sword again. "I know humility, and that makes me more dangerous than you could ever be." "Impossible," the Nine Tails snarled. "Power is everything, strength is the only truth." "Then let me show you a different truth." Naruto's chakra began to change, not growing stronger exactly, but becoming more focused, more precise, and underneath it something else began to manifest, a presence that felt ancient and utterly alien to this world. The Nine Tails' eyes widened in recognition and fear. "What are you?" it whispered. But before Naruto could answer, Menma's consciousness reasserted itself. The borrowed power of the Nine Tails was impressive, but the fox's caution was interfering with his need to prove himself. "Enough games," Menma shouted, chakra flaring to maximum output. "I'll end this now." He began to transform, his body expanding and changing as the Nine Tails' full power manifested in the physical world. Within seconds, a massive fox made of pure chakra towered over the battlefield, its 9 tails lashing with enough force to reshape the landscape. The assembled cage watched in horror as one of the most powerful forces in their world prepared to unleash its full might. But Naruto felt no fear. Instead, he felt something else, a memory that wasn't his own. A vision of endless seas and distant islands. Of a man standing alone on the deck of a ship, facing opponents who commanded powers beyond normal comprehension. The memory of Mihawk, the world's strongest swordsman, facing enemies who wielded devil fruits and haki and abilities that defied conventional understanding. I remember, Naruto whispered. The transformation began as the Nine Tails lunged toward him, not a physical change, but something deeper, something that reached across dimensional boundaries and touched a power that belonged to an entirely different world. Naruto's sword began to glow with energy that had nothing to do with chakra. His presence expanded, becoming something that pressed against reality itself. The very air around him seemed to become sharper, more real than everything else. When the Nine Tails' massive claw struck, Naruto's blade met it with a sound like reality tearing. The chakra construct didn't just stop, it recoiled, smoking where the sword had touched it. Impossible, the Nine Tails roared. What manner of jutsu is this? Not jutsu, Naruto replied, his voice carrying harmonics that seemed to come from somewhere else entirely. Something older, something from a world where the strong stand alone not because they have to, but because they choose to. He raised his sword, and for a moment, everyone watching could swear they saw something else overlaid on his image. A tall man with golden eyes and a black blade that could cut through anything. This is who I really am, Naruto said, speaking as much to himself as to his brother. Not a discarded child or a replacement weapon. I am the reincarnation of the world's strongest swordsman, and I remember now. The Nine Tails attacked again, desperate to prove its superiority. But every strike was turned aside, every blast of energy was deflected, every technique was countered with surgical precision. This wasn't a battle anymore. It was a master class in swordsmanship being demonstrated against an opponent who relied entirely on overwhelming force. You cannot defeat me, the Nine Tails screamed. I am eternal, I am power incarnate. You are very loud, Naruto observed calmly, then moved. The strike was too fast to follow with normal eyes. One moment he was standing 20 feet away from the massive chakra fox. The next, his blade had traced a perfect arc through the air, and the Nine Tails manifestation was falling apart like smoke in the wind. Menma crashed to the ground, unconscious but breathing. The Nine Tails chakra dispersed, leaving only a teenage boy who had pushed himself far beyond his limits. Naruto stood over his fallen brother, sword still glowing with dimensional energy, and felt the weight of recovered memories settling into his mind. Images of battles fought on distant seas, techniques that could cut through anything, the lonely pride of someone who stood at the absolute peak of their craft. He was Naruto Uzumaki, former ninja of Konoha, current operative of Kirigakure. But he was also Dracul Mihawk, reborn into a world that didn't understand what true mastery looked like. Behind him, the Five Cage emerged from the facility, staring at the scene with expressions of awe and terror. What are you? Mei asked softly. Naruto looked at her, and for a moment she saw golden eyes overlaid on blue ones. I'm someone who finally remembers who he was meant to be, he said. The Nine Tails stirred within Menma's unconscious form, its voice weak but audible. Impossible, it whispered. That presence, that power, it doesn't belong to this world. No, Naruto agreed. It doesn't, but I do, and that makes all the difference. As medical teams arrived to tend to Menma, Naruto sheathed his sword and walked back toward the facility. He had work to do, a war to prepare for, a village to protect. But now he finally understood the source of his abilities. The instinctive sword work, the unnatural charisma, the ability to intimidate opponents through presence alone, all of it came from memories of another life, another world, another version of strength entirely. He was the reincarnation of the world's greatest swordsman, and the ninja world was about to learn what that really meant. 2 years had passed since the revelation at Iron Country, and the ninja world had fundamentally changed. The Five Cage Alliance, forged in the aftermath of Menma's defeat, represented the first truly unified response to an S-rank threat in recorded history. But even unified, they knew they were preparing for something unprecedented. Naruto stood on the cliffs overlooking Kirigakure's harbor, watching as allied forces from all 5 villages conducted joint training exercises. The sight should have been impossible, stone ninja working alongside leaf operatives, cloud and sand forces coordinating attacks, all under Mist Village command. Yet here they were, because everyone understood the stakes. Intelligence reports from our border stations, Mei said, approaching with a sealed scroll. Menma has been active again. Naruto took the report and read silently. 3 months ago, his brother had escaped from the maximum security facility where he'd been held since Iron Country. Since then, he'd been systematically targeting smaller villages and military installations, not to conquer them, but to test his evolving abilities. He's learning, Naruto observed. Each attack shows more control, better technique integration. The Ninetales is teaching him to fight smart instead of just fighting hard. How much stronger has he gotten? Strong enough that our current preparations might not be sufficient. That was the problem they all faced. Menma wasn't just getting more powerful, he was getting more skilled. The combination of Ninetales chakra with genuine tactical ability made him exponentially more dangerous than a simple berserker. There's something else, Mei said. Our dimensional research team has been analyzing the energy signature you displayed at Iron Country. They think they've found something. This got Naruto's attention. For 2 years, he'd been working with Kirigakure's best researchers to understand his recovered memories. The knowledge of techniques that shouldn't exist in this world, the instinctive understanding of combat principles that had no equivalent in ninja arts. What kind of something? A theory about where your abilities actually come from, and possibly how to enhance them further. They walked to the research facility together, passing through multiple security checkpoints. The project was classified beyond even most Jonin clearance levels. Only a handful of people knew that their village's greatest asset wasn't entirely human. The lead researcher, an elderly woman named Dr. Naoki, greeted them with barely contained excitement. Naruto-san, we may have found the key, she said, leading them to a chamber lined with complex ceiling arrays. Our analysis of your dimensional energy signature suggests it's not just memories you're accessing. What do you mean? We believe you're actually channeling power directly from another dimension, a parallel world where different laws of physics apply, where techniques like your sword work are possible. Dr. Naoki activated a series of monitoring devices. If we're correct, then your current abilities are just a fraction of what you could potentially access. And the risks, Mei asked, always the pragmatist. Unknown, we're dealing with forces that operate beyond our understanding of chakra or conventional jutsu, but given the threat Menma represents. The risks might be acceptable, Naruto finished. What do you need from me? Deep meditation while connected to our monitoring array. If you can establish a stronger connection to these dimensional memories, we might be able to map the process and help you access more of your inherited abilities. Naruto looked at Mei, who nodded slightly. They both understood the necessity. Menma was becoming something beyond normal ninja capabilities. To stop him, they needed something equally unprecedented. How long? Naruto asked. Several hours at minimum, possibly longer if we encounter complications. Do it. The process began immediately. Naruto was connected to a complex array of monitoring seals while settling into deep meditation. Around him, instruments tracked energy signatures that had no names in any ninja manual. As his consciousness sank deeper, the memories became more vivid. Not just combat techniques now, but entire philosophical frameworks. The concept of haki willpower made manifest. The understanding that true strength came not from overwhelming power, but from perfect mastery of fundamental principles. And underneath it all, a presence that felt ancient and absolutely certain of its place in any hierarchy. Hours passed. The monitoring equipment registered energy spikes that shouldn't have been possible from a single individual. In the observation room, Dr. Naoki watched readings that redefined her understanding of what human potential could look like. His chakra signature is changing, she reported to Mei, not growing stronger exactly, but becoming more refined, more concentrated. Is he in any danger? I don't think so. If anything, his vital signs are more stable than they've been since we started monitoring him. That was when the first reality distortion appeared. It started small, a shimmer in the air around Naruto's meditation position. But as the hours continued, the effect grew stronger. The space around him began to feel more solid somehow, more real than the rest of the room. "What's happening?" Mei asked. I think he's synchronizing with his dimensional source," Dr. Naoki whispered. "The barrier between worlds is becoming thinner." Inside his meditative state, Naruto was experiencing something far more profound than recovered memories. He was standing on the deck of a ship that existed in another world entirely, facing a man whose golden eyes held the accumulated weight of absolute mastery. "So," said Dracula Mihawk, "you finally remember." "I remember some things," Naruto replied, "but not everything, not enough." "Memory is not what you need," Mihawk said, drawing the black blade Yoru. "Understanding is what you lack." "Then teach me." What followed was not a fight in any conventional sense. It was a master class in the philosophy of strength, conducted through the medium of swordsmanship. Every exchange of blades carried lessons about the nature of power, the responsibilities that came with it, and the loneliness that was the price of true mastery. "You fight for others," Mihawk observed after a particularly complex sequence. "That is both your strength and your limitation." "How is caring about people a limitation?" "Because it makes you hesitate. True mastery requires the willingness to cut through anything, even if it means standing alone." "And you think that's better?" "I think it's necessary. The world needs someone who can make the hard choices without flinching. Someone who can bear the weight of absolute strength without being corrupted by it." They continued their exchange, and gradually Naruto began to understand. The techniques were important, but they were just the surface. Underneath was a way of being that transcended normal human limitations. "The power you seek," Mihawk said as their lesson drew to a close, "is not something you take, it is something you become." "And if I become it?" "Then you will be truly alone, more powerful than anyone around you, responsible for choices no one else can make, bearing burdens no one else can carry." "That sounds familiar." "It should. You've been walking that path since you left your first village." Naruto looked around at the impossible ship, the endless ocean, the world that existed only in dimensional memory. "Will I see you again?" "You are me," Mihawk replied simply, "and I am you. When you fully accept that truth, you won't need to see me." The dimensional vision began to fade, but as it did, Naruto felt something fundamental shift inside him. Not new power exactly, but a deeper understanding of power he already possessed. When he opened his eyes in the research facility, 6 hours had passed, but the change was immediately obvious to everyone present. His chakra signature had stabilized at a level that the monitoring equipment couldn't properly measure. His presence filled the room in a way that made even veteran ninja instinctively take a step back. But more than that, there was something in his eyes now. A depth of certainty that spoke of absolute mastery accepted and understood. "How do you feel?" Dr. Naoki asked carefully. "Complete," Naruto replied, standing gracefully. "For the first time in my life, I feel complete." He looked at his hands, flexing fingers that now carried the accumulated muscle memory of techniques that existed beyond this world's understanding. "The dimensional connection is stable," he reported. "I can access the full range of abilities now. Haki, advanced swordsmanship, techniques that exist outside normal chakra manipulation." "And the cost?" Mei asked, though she dreaded the answer. "The same cost it's always been, standing apart from everyone else, being the one who makes the choices others can't." He walked to the chamber's exit, then paused. "Send word to the Alliance commanders. Tell them the preparations are complete. When Menma comes, and he will come, we'll be ready." "How can you be so certain?" "Because I understand something now that I didn't before. This isn't just about stopping my brother. It's about proving that there are still things in this world worth protecting, even if the cost is standing alone to protect them. As he left the facility, Naruto felt the weight of his evolved abilities settling into place. He was no longer just a skilled ninja with unusual techniques. He was something unprecedented in this world, a master swordsman whose abilities transcended the normal limitations of chakra and jutsu. But with that power came the burden Mihawk had warned him about. He was becoming something beyond normal human experience, and that meant accepting a fundamental isolation that few could understand. That evening, as he sat with Mei watching the sunset over Kirigakure's harbor, she asked the question he'd been expecting. "Are you still the same person I fell in love with?" Naruto considered this carefully. "I'm the person I was always meant to become. Whether that's the same person, I honestly don't know. But you still care about me, about this village." "More than ever, but I also understand now that caring about something and being able to be part of it aren't the same thing." Mei felt a chill that had nothing to do with the ocean breeze. What does that mean? "It means that when this is over, when Menma is defeated and the world is safe again, I might have to leave. Not because I want to, but because the kind of power I now possess changes everything around it." "You could choose differently." "Could I?" Mihawk spent his entire life alone because his strength made normal relationships impossible. The gap between him and everyone else was simply too vast to bridge. "You're not him." "No," Naruto agreed quietly. "I'm me, but I'm me with his power, his understanding, his fundamental nature, and that comes with consequences I'm only beginning to understand." They sat in silence as the sun set, both of them aware that everything was changing in ways they couldn't control. Somewhere out there, Menma was growing stronger, preparing for a confrontation that would reshape the ninja world. And here in Kirigakure, Naruto was becoming something that transcended normal human limitations, accepting the burden of power that few could comprehend and fewer still could bear. The final battle was approaching, and when it came, it would determine not just who was stronger, but what kind of world would emerge from their confrontation. But for now, they watched the sunset together, holding onto a moment of peace before the storm that would change everything. The war came not as an invasion, but as a challenge. Naruto stood in the Mizukage's office, reading the message that had arrived that morning. Simple parchment, elegant handwriting, sealed with 9 tails chakra that still burned faintly around the edges. "Brother, the time for hiding behind allies and politics has ended. I challenge you to single combat, no interference, no backup, just the two of us settling what should have been decided years ago. Meet me at the Valley of the End in 3 days, or I will assume you have finally learned your place. Menma." Mei looked up from her own copy of the message. "It's obviously a trap." "No," Naruto said quietly. "It's exactly what it appears to be. He wants to prove he's superior, and he wants to do it where everyone can see." The Valley of the End is on the border between fire and lightning countries. Neutral ground, but close enough to major population centers that the battle will be witnessed. That's the point. Win or lose, this fight will establish which of us is truly stronger. Menma's ego won't allow for any ambiguity. Ao entered the office without knocking, which meant the situation was urgent. "Mizukage-sama, we have a problem. Intelligence reports indicate Sasuke Uchiha has left Konoha without authorization. His destination appears to be the Valley of the End." Naruto felt something cold settle in his stomach. When did he leave? 18 hours ago. At his current pace, he'll arrive at the valley shortly before your scheduled confrontation with Menma. "Why would Sasuke go there?" Mei asked. "Because he can't stand being left out," Naruto replied. "He's spent years knowing that both Menma and I have surpassed him. This is his chance to prove he belongs in our class." "Or to get himself killed," Ao observed grimly. Naruto walked to the window, looking out at the village he had sworn to protect. For 2 years, they had prepared for this moment. All the training, all the research, all the political maneuvering had led to this simple challenge between brothers. "I have to go," he said finally. Not alone, Mei said immediately. This could be exactly what Menma wants to isolate you from any support. It could be, but if I bring backup, he'll claim I was afraid to face him fairly. His pride won't allow him to accept victory under those circumstances. And if you die? Naruto turned to face her, and for a moment she saw golden eyes overlaid on blue ones. Then you'll know that the power I've been accessing isn't enough to protect this world, and you'll need to find another way. That's not acceptable. It's reality. I'm the only one who can match Menma's current power level. If I can't stop him, no one can. What about the Alliance forces? Coordinated attacks from multiple villages would result in massive casualties while achieving nothing. Menma is beyond the point where conventional tactics can touch him. Mei stood and walked to him, placing her hands on his shoulders. Then come back. Whatever it takes, whatever you have to become, come back to me. I'll try. Promise me. Naruto looked into her eyes and saw the fear she was trying to hide. Not fear of death or defeat, but fear of losing him to the power he was still learning to control. I promise to come back if I can, but Mei, the person who returns might not be the same person who's leaving. I know, I've known since the dimensional research began, but I'd rather have you changed than not have you at all. That evening, Naruto made his preparations. He cleaned and sharpened his sword with meditative care, knowing it might be the last time he performed the ritual. He wrote letters to the few people who mattered to him, short notes that said everything that needed to be said without wasting words. And he opened his mind fully to the dimensional connection for the first time since the research facility. The presence of Mihawk flooded his consciousness immediately, bringing with it techniques and understanding that no ninja had ever possessed. But more than that, it brought a philosophical framework for dealing with absolute power. You are ready, Mihawk's voice echoed in his mind, but readiness and victory are not the same thing. I know, but someone has to try. Yes, someone does, and it might as well be us. The next morning, Naruto left Kirigakure alone. He moved at a pace just short of his maximum speed, wanting to arrive fresh but not wanting to keep his brother waiting long enough to get impatient. The Valley of the End was exactly as he remembered from his academy history lessons. A massive waterfall cascaded between two enormous statues, Hashirama Senju and Madara Uchiha, the founders of the ninja village system. The symbolism wasn't lost on anyone. This was where the most legendary rivalry in ninja history had reached its conclusion. Now it would host another. Menma was already there when Naruto arrived, standing on Madara's statue with his arms crossed. The changes in him were immediately obvious. Where once he had looked like a teenager with too much power, now he looked like something that had transcended normal human limitations. His chakra signature was massive but perfectly controlled. His posture spoke of absolute confidence, and his eyes held the cold certainty of someone who had stopped thinking of other people as equals. You came, Menma called out across the valley. I wasn't entirely sure you would. I said I would, Naruto replied, taking his position on Hashirama's statue. Yes, but you've gotten so good at making strategic retreats. I thought you might decide this wasn't worth the risk. Some things are worth any risk. Like what? Your village, your precious Mizukage. The people who will forget you exist the moment you're no longer useful to them. Naruto drew his sword, chakra beginning to flow into the blade. Like the principle that power exists to protect people, not to dominate them. Naive as ever, Menma's own power began to manifest, the Nine Tails chakra forming a visible aura around his body. Power exists for those strong enough to take it and smart enough to use it. Then let's see who's stronger. But before either brother could move, a third voice interrupted them. Don't start without me. Sasuke Uchiha appeared on the valley's rim, Sharingan spinning in both eyes. He looked older, harder, like someone who had spent the last 2 years pushing himself beyond every reasonable limit. Sasuke, Naruto acknowledged, you shouldn't be here. Where else would I be? The two strongest ninja of our generation are about to fight, and you think I'd miss it? "This isn't your fight," Menma said, annoyance clear in his voice. "Isn't it? You two have been defining the standards of our generation since we were children. First at the academy, then at the Chunin exams, now here. I'm tired of being an afterthought in your rivalry." Sasuke activated his main Jikayo Sharingan, and immediately the atmosphere in the valley changed. This wasn't the uncertain boy from their academy days. This was a ninja who had found his own path to power. "So what's your proposal?" Naruto asked. "Simple, all three of us fight. Winner takes all, the title of strongest, the right to shape how this ends, everything." "That's not what this is about," Menma protested. "Isn't it? You want to prove you're the strongest. Naruto wants to stop you from destroying everything. I want to prove I belong in this conversation. Seems like our goals are mutually exclusive." Naruto considered this. A three-way battle would be exponentially more complex than the confrontation he had prepared for, but it would also prevent either him or Menma from achieving a clean victory, which might be exactly what the situation needed. "Rules?" he asked. "No rules," Sasuke replied. "No holds barred, no techniques forbidden, no outside interference. Last man standing wins. And the loser accepts the winner's vision for how things should be." Menma laughed, but there was genuine amusement in it now. "Fine, but don't blame me when you realize you're completely outclassed." "We'll see about that." The three of them took positions, forming a rough triangle in the center of the valley. For a moment, nobody moved. Each was analyzing the others, calculating advantages and disadvantages, preparing for what would likely be the most important fight of their lives. Then Sasuke attacked. Not Naruto or Menma specifically, but both of them simultaneously. Susanoo manifested around him in its perfect form, a massive ethereal warrior wielding weapons of pure chakra. The technique was flawless, controlled, and absolutely deadly. Both brothers were forced to dodge as Susanoo's blade carved through the air where they had been standing. "Impressive," Menma admitted, Ninetales' chakra flaring as he prepared his counterattack. "You've gotten stronger." "Strong enough," Sasuke replied, his Susanoo moving with fluid precision. What followed was unlike any battle in recorded ninja history. Three fighters who had each found their own path to transcendent power, each trying to prove their philosophy was superior. Sasuke fought with the calculated precision of someone who had studied every possible technique and perfected them all. His Susanoo moved like an extension of his will, while his Sharingan tracked every movement his opponents made. Menma fought with the overwhelming force of someone who had unlimited power and the skill to use it effectively. Ninetales' chakra enhanced every technique, making even simple attacks devastating. And Naruto fought with the perfect technique of someone who had access to abilities that existed outside this world's normal limitations. His sword work was flawless, his haki implementation seamless, his dimensional techniques unprecedented. For the first time in years, all three were being pushed to their absolute limits. "This is what I wanted," Sasuke shouted as his Susanoo barely deflected one of Naruto's reality-cutting strikes. "Finally, a fight where we're all giving everything." "Then enjoy it while it lasts," Menma replied, his power continuing to escalate, "because it won't last long." But as the battle continued, something unexpected began to happen. Instead of wearing each other down, the three fighters began to sync their efforts. Not consciously, but instinctively, as if they were remembering what it felt like to be teammates instead of rivals. When Sasuke's Susanoo overextended against Menma, Naruto was there to cover the opening. When Naruto found himself caught between two attacks, Sasuke's intervention created breathing room. When Menma's power threatened to overwhelm them both, they automatically coordinated their response. "What are we doing?" Sasuke asked during a brief lull in the combat. "Fighting like we should have been all along," Naruto replied, breathing hard but still ready to continue. "Like brothers," Menma added, and for a moment his voice held none of the cold certainty that had defined him for years. But the moment passed, the Ninetales' influence reasserted itself, and Menma's expression hardened again. No, this ends here. I won't be held back by sentiment. His power exploded outward, forcing both Sasuke and Naruto backward. When the energy cleared, Menma stood transformed not into the Nine Tails, but into something that combined the fox's power with his own human will. Perfect Jinchuriki transformation, Sasuke breathed. He's achieved complete synchronization. Naruto felt the dimensional connection respond to the escalation. Power flooded through him from across reality's boundaries, bringing with it techniques that existed beyond normal comprehension. Sasuke's Mangekyo evolved further, manifesting abilities that pushed his bloodline beyond its traditional limits. All three had reached the peak of their respective paths to power. Last chance, Menma said, his voice echoing with harmonics that belonged to both human and demon. Surrender now, and I'll make your deaths quick. Counteroffer, Naruto replied, his sword beginning to glow with dimensional energy. You remember what it felt like to be part of a family instead of its destroyer. Family? Menma laughed bitterly. You want to talk about family? After you abandoned us, after you threw away everything they offered you. They never offered me anything. They offered their replacement son everything while forgetting I existed. Because you were weak, because you couldn't handle the responsibility. Because I was 7 years old and wanted my parents to remember my birthday. The words hung in the air between them, cutting deeper than any blade. For a moment, both brothers stood frozen, remembering the child they had both been before power and rivalry had consumed everything else. Sasuke stepped between them. Enough, this isn't about who was loved more or who was neglected more. This is about who we choose to be now. And who are you choosing to be? Naruto asked. Someone who doesn't let his teammates fight alone. I'm not your teammate anymore, Menma said coldly. Then prove it, beat both of us, show us that your path is stronger than ours. What followed was the final exchange of their long rivalry. 3 techniques that represented 3 different philosophies of power launched simultaneously at the center of the valley. Menma's attack was pure overwhelming force. Every technique he knew, every scrap of Ninetales' power, focused into a single devastating assault that could have leveled mountains. Sasuke's technique was perfect precision, chakra shaped and controlled with mathematical exactness, designed to cut through any defense through sheer technical superiority. Naruto's strike was something beyond both, a sword technique that existed outside normal physics, powered by will made manifest and guided by understanding that transcended this world's limitations. The 3 attacks met at the exact center of the valley. Reality buckled. The explosion was visible from 3 countries away. The waterfall stopped flowing. The massive statues of Hashirama and Madara cracked down their entire length. When the energy cleared, all 3 fighters lay unconscious on the valley floor. But they were all still breathing. Naruto was the first to wake, his dimensional enhanced physique recovering faster than normal human biology should have allowed. He found himself lying in a crater, his sword buried point first in the stone beside him. Sasuke was nearby, sharing and flickered out, blood streaking from his eyes but alive. His Susanoo was gone, his chakra nearly depleted, but he was trying to sit up. And Menma lay between them, the Ninetales chakra cloak finally faded, looking younger somehow, more human. Did anyone win? Sasuke asked weakly. We're all still alive, Naruto replied. Maybe that's victory enough. Menma stirred, consciousness returning slowly. When he opened his eyes, they were blue again, just blue, without the fox's vertical pupils. I can't feel it, he whispered. The Ninetales, I can't feel its presence anymore. Naruto extended his senses and realized Menma was right. The overwhelming chakra signature that had defined his brother for years was gone, replaced by something that felt almost normal. The collision, Sasuke realized, the feedback from 3 ultimate techniques colliding, it must have severed your connection to the Ninetales. Is it gone? Menma asked, and for the first time in years, he sounded like the boy Naruto remembered. Not gone, but separate again, you're just you now. Menma sat up slowly, looking at his hands as if seeing them for the first time. I remember everything I did, everyone I hurt, but it feels like watching someone else's memories. The Nine Tails was influencing your thoughts, Naruto said, amplifying your worst impulses while suppressing your better nature. That doesn't excuse what I did. No, but it explains it. They sat in silence for several minutes, three exhausted warriors contemplating the wreckage of their final confrontation. So what happens now? Sasuke asked finally. Now Naruto struggled to his feet, helping the others up as well. Now we figure out how to live with the choices we've made. I killed our parents, Menma said quietly. I murdered innocent people. There's no coming back from that. There's no undoing it, Naruto agreed, but there might be a way to atone for it. You'd help me after everything's. Naruto looked at his brother, really looked at him, and saw not the monster he had become, but the boy he had been. The child who had been given too much responsibility too young, who had been told he was special until he believed he was entitled to everything. You're my brother, he said simply. That has to mean something. Sasuke cleared his throat. This is very touching, but we should probably leave before someone comes to investigate the explosion. As they walked out of the ruined valley together, Naruto felt something he hadn't experienced in years: hope. Not for easy answers or simple solutions, but for the possibility that people could change, that mistakes could be learned from, that even the worst choices didn't have to define someone forever. Behind them, the statues of Hashirama and Midora stood cracked but still standing, eternal guardians of a valley that had seen the end of one legendary rivalry and perhaps the beginning of something better. The three most powerful ninja of their generation walked away from their final battle not as enemies, but as brothers who had finally learned what truly mattered. The war was over. The real work of building something better was just beginning. 6 months after the battle at the Valley of the End, the ninja world faced a new threat that dwarfed anything they had previously encountered. Kaguya Otsutsuki had awakened. Naruto stood in the war room beneath Kirigakure's administrative building, studying the reports that continued to arrive from across the elemental nations. The rabbit goddess had emerged from her dimensional prison, and her power was reshaping reality itself wherever she appeared. Casualty reports from the Lightning Country engagement, May said, handing him another scroll. 30% losses in the first hour of contact. The Cloud Village has requested immediate evacuation assistance. And the Stone Country. Complete communication blackout. We have to assume the worst. Around the table, the other Alliance commanders looked grim. The fourth Raikage's arm was in a sling from his village's encounter with Kaguya's forces. The Kazekage hadn't spoken since receiving word that his youngest son was missing. Even Danzo, who had maintained his position as acting Hokage, looked shaken. Our conventional forces are useless against her, the Raikage said bluntly. She exists on a level we can't comprehend, let alone match. Then we need unconventional forces, May replied, looking at Naruto. For 6 months, Naruto had been working with the Alliance's research teams to understand Kaguya's abilities. The dimensional techniques he had inherited from Mihawk gave him insights into her power that no one else possessed, but even he admitted the gap was vast. She's not just powerful, he said quietly. She's operating with techniques that exist outside our reality's normal rules. Dimensional manipulation, matter reconstruction, gravity control abilities that make the Sage of Six Paths look limited. So we surrender, Danzo asked bitterly. We adapt. Before anyone could ask what he meant, alarms began sounding throughout the facility. Emergency lights flashed as the voice of the communications officer echoed through the building. Priority alert, unknown dimensional distortion detected above the village. Massive chakra signature approaching from high atmosphere. Through the reinforced windows, they could see it, a tear in the sky itself, through which an alien landscape was visible. And descending from that tear was a figure that radiated power like a small sun. Kaguya had found them. Evacuation protocols, May ordered immediately. All non-combat personnel to the deep shelters, Alliance forces to defensive positions. It won't matter, Naruto said, watching the goddess's graceful descent. She's not here to conquer territory, she's here to reclaim what she considers her property. The chakra of this world, the Kazekage realized. And everyone who uses it. As the assembled leaders rushed to coordinate their village's defenses, Naruto remained at the window. He could feel Kaguya's attention like a physical weight, her ancient consciousness examining the village below with the detached interest of someone cataloging their possessions. May appeared beside him. What are you thinking? That this is what I've been preparing for, not Menma, not the Akatsuki, not any human threat, this. Can you stop her? Alone? No, but I don't have to be alone anymore. As if summoned by his words, Sasuke appeared in the room via his dimensional travel technique. Behind him came Menma, no longer radiating Nine-Tails chakra but still possessing formidable abilities of his own. Took you long enough, Naruto said. Had to collect our wayward brother, Sasuke replied, nodding toward Menma. Figured you might need all the help you could get. Menma looked older, more serious. 6 months of working to atone for his crimes had changed him fundamentally. The arrogant boy who had murdered his parents was gone, replaced by someone who understood the weight of responsibility. I felt her awakening, Menma said quietly. The Nine-Tails, even separated from me, it's terrified of her. She's what gave it nightmares for centuries. Then we'll give her some new nightmares, Naruto said, drawing his sword. The blade hummed with dimensional energy as chakra flowed into it, but this time the power felt different, more complete, as if the trials of the past months had finally unlocked the full potential of his inherited abilities. Together, Sasuke asked, activating his Mangekyou Sharingan. Together, Naruto confirmed. The three brothers left the command center and took position on Kirigakure's highest tower. Below them, the village's defenders prepared for a battle they couldn't possibly win through conventional means. Above them, Kaguya descended with the inexorable certainty of a falling star. When she spoke, her voice carried across the entire village with perfect clarity. You who have inherited my chakra, she said, her tone holding the weight of absolute authority. Return what you have stolen and your deaths will be swift. Counteroffer, Naruto called back, his own voice somehow carrying just as clearly. Leave this world alone, and we won't have to show you how much we've improved on your techniques. For the first time in millennia, Kaguya looked genuinely surprised. She focused her attention on the three figures standing defiant on the tower below. Interesting, you possess power that doesn't belong to this dimension. How is that possible? Apparently, Naruto replied, your world isn't the only one with strong people in it. Kaguya's expression shifted from surprise to something that might have been curiosity. Show me. The battle that followed redefined everyone's understanding of what ninja combat could look like. Kaguya fought with techniques that rewrote the laws of physics around her. Gravity became a weapon, space folded and twisted at her command, matter transformed according to her will. But the three brothers fought with something she had never encountered before, perfect synchronization born from years of rivalry, competition, and ultimate understanding. Sasuke's Sharingan tracked her dimensional manipulations, predicting techniques that existed outside normal time and space. His Susanoo adapted to environments that shifted between realities, maintaining coherent form even when the laws of physics changed around it. Menma fought with the desperate intensity of someone seeking redemption. Every technique was precise, controlled, designed to support his brothers rather than showcase his individual power. The Nine-Tails separation had actually made him more effective. He was no longer fighting the fox's influence, allowing him to use his natural abilities with unprecedented focus. And Naruto fought with the accumulated mastery of 2 lifetimes. Mihawk's swordsmanship combined with ninja techniques in ways that created entirely new forms of combat. His haki implementation allowed him to strike targets that existed partially outside reality. His dimensional understanding let him counter Kaguya's space-time manipulation with techniques that operated on similar principles. Impossible, Kaguya breathed as her latest attack was not just blocked, but completely negated. You fight as if you understand the fundamental nature of dimensional energy. I should, Naruto replied, his sword glowing with power that made the air itself seem sharper. I learned from someone who mastered it in a world where such abilities were commonplace. What world? One where the strong stand alone not because they have to, but because they choose to, where power exists to challenge other power, not to dominate the weak. Kaguya paused in her assault, studying him with new interest. You speak of strength as if it has purpose beyond itself. Doesn't it? I created chakra to bring peace through unified power. Instead, humans used it to create new forms of war. Because you gave them power without teaching them wisdom, you thought you could control them through overwhelming force. And you believe differently. I believe that true strength means protecting people who can't protect themselves, even if it means standing apart from them. Naive child, you will learn, as I did, that peace can only exist when power is concentrated in a single authority. Then let's test that theory. What followed was the final exchange of the battle. Kaguya gathered every technique at her disposal, weaving together powers that could unmake reality itself. The three brothers responded with their own ultimate technique, not individual attacks, but a single coordinated assault that combined their different philosophies of strength into something greater than the sum of its parts. Sasuke's precision guided the attack, Menma's power fueled it, and Naruto's dimensional understanding gave it the ability to affect targets that existed beyond normal spacetime. When the techniques collided, the result was catastrophic. The sky cracked, reality wavered. For a moment, it seemed as if the entire world might come apart. Then Kaguya fell. Not destroyed, beings like her couldn't be truly killed, but defeated, her consciousness forced back into dimensional imprisonment that would hold her for millennia to come. As the goddess's form faded, her final words echoed across the battlefield. You have shown me something I had forgotten. Perhaps there is wisdom in choosing strength over certainty. The three brothers stood on the ruined tower, breathing hard but victorious. Around them, Kirigakure was damaged but intact. The world was safe. Is it over? Menma asked. For now, Naruto replied, but there will always be new threats, new challenges. That's what strength is for. And what about us? Sasuke asked. What happens to the three strongest ninja in the world when there are no more impossible enemies to fight? Naruto looked at his brothers, then down at the village below. People were emerging from the shelters, checking on their neighbors, beginning the work of rebuilding. Normal people living normal lives, protected by their victory, but unaware of the scale of what had just been prevented. We protect them, he said simply. We make sure they never have to know how close they came to losing everything. Even if it means standing apart from them. Especially then. Over the following weeks, as the world celebrated the end of the greatest threat it had ever faced, the three brothers made their choices about the future. Sasuke returned to Konoha, accepting a position that would let him protect the village from the shadows while maintaining the independence he needed. Menma disappeared entirely, choosing to wander the world and atone for his crimes through actions rather than words. He left only a note saying he would return when he had found a way to truly make amends. And Naruto stood in Mei's office, looking out at the village that had become his home. You're leaving, she said. It wasn't a question. I have to. Because of your power. Because of what my power makes me, the gap between what I am now and what everyone else is, it's too vast to bridge through normal relationships. Mei was quiet for a long moment. I knew this day would come. From the moment you achieved full dimensional synchronization, I knew you were becoming something beyond normal human experience. It doesn't mean I don't love you. I know, but it does mean that love isn't enough to overcome the fundamental isolation that comes with your kind of strength. Naruto turned to face her. There's something else, a title I need to accept, a role that exists outside normal village politics. The Shadow Cage. How did you know? Because it's what you've always been, really. The person who makes the hard choices from the shadows. The one who bears the burdens others can't carry. Will you be all right? The village, I mean. We'll survive, we always do, and maybe someday when the world faces something it can't handle alone, the Shadow Cage will return to help. That evening, Naruto stood on the docks of Kirigakure, watching the sun set over the harbor. His sword hung at his side, and his few possessions were packed in a simple travel bag. They approached one final time. Any idea where you'll go? Wherever I'm needed, there are always threats that exist outside normal village jurisdiction. Dimensional instabilities, rogue entities, problems that require someone who operates beyond conventional authority. And if you're never needed, then I'll find a quiet place to practice my swordsmanship and try to understand what it means to possess this kind of power without being corrupted by it. You could stay, we could find a way to make it work. Naruto looked at her, memorizing her face. Could we? How long before my presence begins to change you? Before you start seeing yourself as less than what you are because of what I've become? That wouldn't happen. It already has. I can see it in your eyes when you look at me now. Not fear exactly, but acknowledgement of a fundamental difference that can't be bridged. May started to protest, then stopped, because he was right and they both knew it. Will I see you again? When the world needs the Shadow Cage, I'll be there. But Naruto Uzumaki, the boy who found a home in Kirigakure, I think he's finally growing up. As the boat that would take him to his new life prepared to depart, Naruto took one last look at the village that had given him everything he needed to become what he was meant to be. Then he walked aboard and didn't look back. The Shadow Cage had work to do. Somewhere in the world, there were threats that required someone who could stand alone against forces that normal ninja couldn't comprehend. Problems that needed someone with the strength to make decisions others couldn't make and bear responsibilities others couldn't carry. As his boat disappeared into the evening mist, Naruto felt a deep satisfaction settle over him. He had found his purpose at last, not as a village's weapon or a leader's tool, but as something else entirely. He was the sword that cut through destiny itself. And that was exactly what the world needed him to be. The end. And that's a wrap from Forgotten Child to Shadow Kage. What an incredible journey. Naruto's transformation was absolutely epic. If you enjoyed this story, smash that like button and let me know your favorite moment in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing what-if scenarios and hit that notification bell. What crossover story should we tackle next? Drop your suggestions. Until next time, peace out.